from Philly to DC here on WURD, and hope everyone at least tried to have a restful, enjoyable, and safe, healthy weekend. I always hope that that's the case for everyone out there. I know it can be tough and difficult at times, but always good to talk with you on these Monday mornings. We have a special broadcast lined up for you this Monday morning. We're going to talk about judicial races. We've got this May 18th primary that's coming up very soon. A lot of folks aren't aware of those judicial races, but judicial races, particularly when you consider the very unique and very troubled relationship, as we said earlier, that our community, particularly the Black community, has with the justice system. These particular races for a variety of judge positions, judicial seats, and district attorney are some of the most consequential elections of our time. And we're going to be focusing on that and other issues, particularly issues dealing with the criminal justice or criminal legal system and the incarcerated, current and formerly, here on Reality Check today. This special broadcast and this special focus this morning is being brought to you by the 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot. And they all would like to remind you that on May 18th, once again, Philadelphians will vote for the district attorney and various state and local judges in Philadelphia and throughout the state. Make sure you are registered to vote by May 3rd. Go to philadelphiavotes.com, of course, to get more information on how you can get registered to vote. Also, votespa.com is another place you can go to. This broadcast also being done in partnership with the Office of Councilmember at Large, Kendra Brooks. For more information on the 215 People's Alliance, you can go to 215pa.com. For Reclaim Philadelphia, it's reclaimphiladelphia.org, and Free the Ballot is found at freetheballot.org. Actually, co-hosting with me today and joining me for this very essential and very important discussion is Kurt Evans. Kurt Evans, also an activist, a member of the steering committee with the 215 People's Alliance. He's doing co-hosting duties with me today. Kurt joins us by Zoom. Kurt, how are you doing? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, Charles. Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. No, it's good to have you as well. Before we we're going to bring on a little bit later on in the next several minutes or so, we're supposed to also be talking with Shakita Gaines. She's president of the Philadelphia Home and School Council, an educational activist and advocate. PhiladelphiaHCS.org for more information on what they do and what she does. Kevin, real quick, I'm real curious to get more information. I'm sure listeners are very curious about the 215 People's Alliance. Of course, many people in the community are already very familiar with 215 PA's work, but would like to hear from you. What is the 215 People's Alliance, and what are the issues that you all are focused on right now? I think we have you on mute, Kurt.
Let me come off mute. Zoom etiquette. So at 215 People's Alliance, we're a multiracial collaborative dedicated for fighting for equal justice in Philadelphia at the ballot. And at the moment, we are really focused on this judicial race coming up. It's very important. We're a collaborative. We're parents, neighbors, teachers, students, block captains, name it. 215 is for the people. And understanding that how important this judicial race is coming up, as far as in district attorney, judges, these things have an effect on our community for the years to come. And we like to bring awareness to these issues so that when you're going to the poll, you're equipped with the right knowledge to make the decision to put the right people in office.
What compelled you to get involved with 215 People's Alliance in the first place? I know you're the owner also of Down North Pizza. That's at 2804 West Lehigh. And you opened up about a few weeks ago, back up, because you've been a small business struggling through pandemic. But one of the things that has your business standing out is that you employ the formerly incarcerated. So obviously that's an issue that's near and dear to you. But you know, I'd be real curious to know what compels you to get involved with the People's Alliance in the first place.
The People's Alliance, I was always had a kind of relationship with the People's Alliance from a friend of mine, chef friend of mine, Ben Miller, through his restaurant South Philly Barbacoa. And it was a lot of organizing going on that they were doing around food. And I like to use food as a vehicle to bring awareness to issues. And 215 actually started a People's Kitchen, where I was one of the founding chef members that will come in, and we cook 250 meals a day for people, and for free, and give the meal out to people in the community. And some of the members, just would invite me to visioning meetings, and I would show up every Saturday, to talk about the vision of 215. And I thought I should be paying. I was like, oh, I should be paying some dues here. Right. I should join, and I joined and became a member. And then I started took a position as the decriminalization organizer for 215. And we're here today, and aligning the work that I do around mass incarceration, along with this new chapter of ending mass incarceration at 215. It was a good marriage.
Hey, Kurt, before we go to Shakita, how do we make the case for judicial races? So they are some of the most important, some of the most consequential and significant races. I call them justice races, right? Because these are elections about justice, or about ensuring that justice systems actually work like justice systems, that they're actually creating environments or climates for justice. Obviously, that's not always the case. But they aren't, these are the most significant and essential races, but they're not the most highly publicized. People are still confused as to who is running. They're even confused on exactly what slots are being campaigned for. So, through the work that you're doing through the 215 People's Alliance, how do we make the case for justice races? Why should people pay attention?
People should pay attention because of the things that go on in your community. It may not, some people may think things don't affect them, but you have friends and family members, and a lot of these issues have plagued our community for years. And you shouldn't be putting anyone in jail because they can't afford to pay bail. It's issues like that some of these judges that are constantly elected in are continuing these paths. Some people are running on the platform of, locking people up makes the streets safer, when it's statistics and data that show that that's not true. So paying attention to these races is really important for the community, instead of falling into the narrative of things that people are spewing about the narratives of our community. People should really pay attention to these races more than the presidential race.
Mm-hmm. No, thanks for that. And actually, Kurt, I'm inviting you, because you're co-host, so you're doing some co-hosting duties this morning. I invite you to ask questions throughout the course of this discussion that we're having on judicial races, justice races. That's the topic. That's the focus of today. How we make Philadelphia a better Philadelphia, a Philadelphia that works for everyone. And part of that is ensuring that, the criminal justice, just the overall justice system is truly living up to its name, because we know that it's not. But all the more reason why we need to pay attention to these races. Also, more information on the different candidates that are running. Well, first of all, the slots that are being campaigned for, the various judicial slots. For example, justice. We have Supreme Court, state Supreme Court races that are taking place. Also, state Superior Court races taking place. The Commonwealth Court, Court of Common Pleas, Municipal Court, and the bigger race that a lot of folks, everyone is paying attention to, especially, is for district attorney. That seems to be a very caustic, very heated race right now. Both candidates that are involved in that race are raising lots of money. There's a lot of national attention on that as well. But as we go on, Kurt, I definitely want you to jump in and ask questions and, chime in, especially if you want to add more to the discussion. Joining us now is Shakita Gaines. And Shakita Gaines is president of the Philadelphia Home and School Council. She's a longtime educational activist in Philadelphia, also advocate. Go to philadelphiahcs.org for more information on what they do. Shakita, how are you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Charles. It's nice to see your face.
All right, it's good to see your face as well. It's good to see and really appreciate the smile. All smiles despite the circumstances. I appreciate that. And the Philadelphia Home and School Council, what is that? Talk about the issues that you all are focused on. I know education, obviously, top of mind for your organization, but it intersects with so many other challenges.
Absolutely. So Philadelphia Home and School Council has been around since 1897. So we have been the parents on a volunteer level trying to push for education to be the forefront of all school districts. What we have been doing is trying to get our foot inside of our schools to ensure that our children have an equitable and quality education. And this has been since 1897. So we deal with, right now we're dealing with a multiple of platforms, which includes food insecurity, ensuring that families know their rights, and pushing out the reason and the right to vote. So we don't push for elective officials, or we don't stand by anyone, but we want people to know what their rights are.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Kurt. Did you have a question for Shakita real quick? Or want to add something to that? No, it's okay. So in a time like this, because you're like a consortium group, an organizing, coordinating committee for parent groups throughout the city at different schools. First, how active and how pivotal are parent groups, right? And then how have you been able to organize and coordinate at a time like this during pandemic when, we're just getting around, Philadelphia School District just getting around to managing the reopening of schools, and there's a lot of controversy around that. I'd like for you to touch on that if you could briefly as well. But how have you been able to organize on these issues during pandemic?
I can honestly say that people have been reaching out to us more than anything right now because of the pandemic, because they're upset about what's really happening inside of their schools. We have been using Zoom. We have still been meeting up 6 feet distance, distancing, having conversations. But quite honestly, I think because so many people were angry about what's been happening inside the school district, we didn't have to go looking for them. They came and looked for us. And parent organizing is the one thing that people don't realize that should be happening in all schools. If you don't have a parent group in your school, you're really lacking resources, because those parent groups make everything happen. They are not just fundraising pieces. They are the advocates of those buildings. They get to advocate and let you know what's wrong with their school and also what's needed for their school. So they don't just go and bark at the principal, but they also go bark at the city. They go bark at the state. They fight for children. They go into kids' houses and they help with getting food and getting resources for the family. They are that loving and caring and nurturing space for children to be in. As a matter of fact, some home and schools offices are designated as a de-escalation room for some kids. Those are where the children go and get meals, go get food, go get the love that they need. They actually encourage healthy parent partnerships. They give a loving environment, and of course, they fight for education practices.
Yeah, we don't hear enough about that too, especially, and talk a little bit about this, on the grassroots level, how parents in a distressed city like Philadelphia organize, right? Because there is a struggle, right? Especially when you're in a place like Philadelphia.
Yes.
You're coming from communities, places where we grew up in Philadelphia, whether it's North Philadelphia, South, Southwest, West Philadelphia. And it's hard for parents in our communities to, especially when you're not just focused on raising a family, but you got to work.
Yes.
You got to work, you got to generate an income to make sure people can eat, put food on the table and clothes on their back. And then you got to put extra time into organizing. Because you're absolutely right. If the schools don't see the parents organizing and caring about the children, then it's like, well, the schools are like, well, why should we care? But it's just so important. But talk about that too, because it is, you deal with circumstances and disparities and funding issues that, like, say, other parents in white middle class suburban neighborhoods outside of Philadelphia don't have to deal with?
Absolutely. So one, we need to know that all our homeschool officers, including us at council, do not get paid. All of this is volunteer services. So when you're asking a parent to take away from their second job and come in to do work, you're putting more stress on that parent, or you're telling them that they're not worthy, or they're not doing enough for their children. And that's not the case. What we want to push out here to parents. What we want the parents to know is, if you're giving 20 hours a year to a home and school, that makes so much difference. If you're buying into your community, you're buying into your school, you are definitely fixing and helping your community. What we learned in these kind of spaces is that a great school makes for a great community. Mm-hmm. When the school fails, the community will fall right along with it. You'll get gentrification that's easily able to come in. You get people from the outside group that want to come in and take over your property. You get more renters. And not to say there's nothing wrong with renting. Please don't come and, bite my head off. But you want people to buy into their community, because when people buy into their community, they tend to take care of their community a little bit better than the average. And I'm a renter, so don't come at my neck for saying.
So half the city of Philadelphia rents. We need to recognize that.
Unfortunately, and this is why our schools suffer, and because people don't buy in. Go ahead, Kurt.
Go ahead. No, I just wanted to go in and ask you about how can people support you in a home and school association and helping prevent this escalation in youth violence? Because you're seeing on TV 15, 16, 12, 13-year-olds being shot. So what can people listening and people do to support you guys, to support the work that you're doing in prevention?
So absolutely, we can talk about supporting us, but let's talk about supporting the child first, okay? So how we support the child is talking about their ACE scores. And their ACE scores is adverse childhood experiences. What we've learned is that a child who does not know their score, and their score is between 1 and 10. You have a lot of adults around here that don't know their score. When you have a child from 1 to 10 and they know their score, they tend to have better results, because we didn't learn what their resilience score is. So there's an ACE score, and then there's a resilience score. And your resilience scores lets us know if you're in survival mode, if you're in other portions of your life where you're in fight or flight, or if it's a thing where we need to push in for more counseling, more supports, more of those things. A lot of people don't mention ACE scores when we talk about criminalization of our children. We tend to put our kids and say, oh, he's 12 now, or he's 10 now, because in a school, they could come in as a police officer and arrest your child at 10 years old. But we're not talking about what's really happening at home. What are the 10 different categories that's under abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction? How do we realize that is shortening their life? And understanding that if they have a score of 4 or more, that they might be experiencing alcoholism, depression, and suicidal thoughts. But the front of their brain waves is not dealing with self-control, is not dealing with planning for the future, is not dealing with empathy, it does not deal with reasoning, and it does not control impulsive behavior. And we're still talking about what's really happening with their scores. So when we talk about those things, we can then talk about how we need to put in places and spaces and things that children need in order for them to be successful and loving.
Shakita, hold that thought. We actually have to go to break, and then we actually have another guest that's supposed to be coming in the next segment, but I don't see her yet, so we'll just keep you on for a couple more minutes, but I'm going to take a quick break. We're having a discussion here on the race for justice. We got justice elections that are coming up on May 18th. This special broadcast of Reality Check today is a very important broadcast, essential discussion. It's being brought to you by the 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot. and they all would like to remind you that on May 18th, Philadelphians will vote for the district attorney and judges. Make sure you are registered to vote by May 3rd. Once again, more information at 215pa.com, reclaimphiladelphia.org, and freetheballot.org. Let's take a break. I've got Kurt Evans with me, other 215 People's Alliance, also Shakita Gaines. I just got one more question for she's president of the Philadelphia Home and School Council. That's PhiladelphiaHSC.org. I apologize for that, Shakita. PhiladelphiaHSC.org to learn more about them. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
This is brought to you by 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot, who would like to remind you that on May 18th, Philadelphians will vote for the district attorney and judges. Make sure you are registered to vote by May 3rd.
If you're feeling down or feeling blue and want someone to help you process it all, let's talk with Yolanda. She's not only a social media motivational speaker, she's a psychotherapist by trade and certified in prolonged exposure therapy for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. If you need counseling or seeking a life coach, contact Yolanda Novoa, 267-574-4632. Let's talk with Yolanda. She can be seen on Facebook and YouTube.
One more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations. Because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
Join WURD Radio CEO Sarah Lomax Reese on Wednesday, April 21st at 1 p.m. for a special virtual broadcast in celebration of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Month. Sarah will be leading a conversation with African American C-suite executives, exploring the challenges and opportunities of creating real diversity, equity, and inclusion in corporate America. Panelists include Delilah Wilson Scott, Chief Diversity Officer at Comcast and President of the Comcast Foundation, Michael Rashid, Commerce Director for the City of Philadelphia, and Ramona Risco Benson, Director of Corporate and Community Relations at PICO. Tune in Wednesday, April 21st at 1 p.m. for this important conversation. For more information, visit wordradio.com and click on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Month banner. Brought to you by Comcast, Bank of America, PICO, Thomas Jefferson University, and Jefferson Health.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
Okay, we know that judicial races happen in what they call those off-election years, but we know that that issue is always on because our community has this very troubled, very problematic relationship with the courts. Every time we go into a court system, it's always a problem. So that's why we have to pay attention to these judicial races. When you have a DA, and it's not just in Philadelphia, but we have all over the country, we have a number of races that are taking place in state and local levels and state and local court systems. So we of all communities, Black communities, should be very keyed in, very tuned into these races. And so as a part of that effort to spark more awareness around judicial races that are happening in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, we are having this very special broadcast. It's being brought to you by the 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot. And they're all reminding you that we have to vote on May 18th. Philadelphians must vote. Please get registered to vote for races for the district attorney and other judicial slots by May 3rd. Once again, more information at 215pa.com, reclaimphiladelphia.org, and freetheballot.org. Shakita, one more question before I bring on Shuja Moore, who's a filmmaker, and we're going to kind of delve a little bit more into that issue regarding incarceration. But just want to get your viewpoint, because you started touching on that, right, Shakita? Mm-hmm. Like why the court system, or so-called justice system, why it's so important, particularly in the context of our students, that school to prison pipeline, that at some point we need to dismantle that, but talk about why these judicial races are important in the context of our children in these schools.
So when we learn is that, again, 10-year-olds are being prosecuted right now as adults. 12-year-olds are being prosecuted as adults. They are still children. They have not grown. They're mental, they're emotional, they're spiritual. None of that is fully developed yet. And if they are in homes that have been dysfunctional all their lives, they have no growth. There is no growth there, and their brain waves are not even functioning properly. So we didn't give them the tools that they need. How can we then sit here and condemn them for the things that they do? And I'm not sitting here saying that everything is right or wrong. I don't want nobody coming at me like, a killer should be off the streets. We understand that. But we have to give true and real life solutions before we start throwing our children behind bars, because that is not working. It's almost like telling us that we have to beat our child for every single thing that they do. They're not going to be beaten. What they're going to do is start walking in straight lines, but there's still going to always be a line where they'll go somewhere else because they know the beating is just going to come. And if they know that jail is the only thing they have, so they've already been homeless, they already been left, family. People have walked away from them. They have nobody to love. Jail might be the only thing for them, and they're okay with that. So we have to come out of that situation. And then also to our brothers out there who continue to sit here and scream about this judge, that judge, this judge. Go out and vote. Vote them out.
Vote them out.
In Pennsylvania, we have the ability that once you have served, you can still vote. That's not a luxury for every state.
That's right.
But it's a luxury for us. Go out and vote. Stop talking about it and be about it and get out there and vote.
We should be concerned about school to prison pipeline. Those children, they eventually become adults. That's accumulated social cost. It hits everyone. So even if you don't have a child in your home, it's going to hit you in some form or fashion, whether in your pocket or more directly in very tragic ways. We should be concerned about that. Shakita Gaines, thanks so much for joining us. I got to bring you back on. We're going to bring you back on.
Yes.
We got a lot more questions for you. President of the Philadelphia Home and School Council. Go to philadelphiahsc.org, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much, Shakita. Be safe out there. And then we got Kurt Evans is still with us. He's my co-host for this morning. And feel free, Kurt, to jump in to talk with our next guest. Kurt Evans, by the way, just to remind everyone, coordinator, organizer with the 215 People's Alliance. Shuja Moore is a filmmaker. He's a creator, executive producer of Walkies. It's a docu-series exploring the stories of the formerly incarcerated. Go to walkiesfilms.com. Shuja, welcome to the program. And what do you mean by Walkies?
So thanks for having me, Charles. And nice to see you again, Kurt. What's up, bro? Yeah, Walkies is a Pennsylvania prison term for, one of your closest friends. You have a cellie, that's the person you live with. Walkie is the person you're often seen walking with, because there are no cars in prison. So walk the track, you walk to the chow hall, that's one of your closest companions.
And what was the inspiration behind this film, and why the focus of the formerly incarcerated? Talk a little bit about the inspiration and also what the film's covering.
For sure. So we named it Walkies. We borrowed that prison term because it represents what we do in this docu-series. So far, we released 3 episodes out of a 4 to 5 episode first season. And we just showed the transformation stories. I wanted to really dive deeper into what the experience is in terms of going to prison, why you went to prison, but more importantly, highlighting how people transform themselves and become successful after going through that experience. The reason that I created it is because I'm formerly incarcerated. I became a statistic, as embarrassing as it is and disappointing. I spent 12 years in prison behind a violent crime. And in that time, I worked really, really hard to embody what I saw, or what I come to understand as restorative justice, meaning that I recognized the harm that I caused, and now I want to, now I want to be part of the solution. So Walkies is the first step in that direction. And I think it's needed, one, to inspire those who are still in crime to have a blueprint on how to get out, but also to show a broader stretch of society that people can transform themselves. And it's not about how you start, but it's about how you finish.
Kurt, did you have any comments or questions too? Because you're a small business owner that employs a formerly incarcerated, so I'd love to get your perspective on it.
Yeah, so at Down North, and I've worked with Shujat on a few things at Down North. He's very inspiring to me. So I like the fact that you touched on restorative justice. I think to a lot of people, that's a new concept. I think that's something moving forward. I think that our communities need an understanding of restorative justice. And I think all parties involved, you know, that needs to be something that needs to be introduced to our communities. And what we do at Down North, we would like to look at it as a way of restorative justice. We offer 6 months rent-free for some employees that actually need it. Like when we looked at the numbers between homelessness and mass incarceration, that's a big challenge. And even talking to Shu when he talks about these issues of sometimes a lot of people don't know about these programs. They don't know a lot of things are there, that people are there to help them coming out. So coming out of the system, the criminal legal system, you may hit the streets again, and you may go back to, what you knew before you went in. And I like what Shu always talks about us, like he worked on himself. And I think that's really important with being able to help people with that support to be able to work on themselves.
Yeah, and Shuja, these are some very well put together, well designed films or shorts, because you can watch, right? Listeners, viewers can watch your entire series at walkiesfilms.com. These are also posted on YouTube, but they're primarily on the site. You can go to walkiesfilms.com right now, and you can watch the voices, the faces of those who are struggling, grappling with incarceration like you do. This is very sleek. I mean, this is a very impressive production that you put together here. So this is not something that you put together just yesterday. You put a lot of thought and time into it. People should know that this is a full-blown cinematic production that you have put together here to tell this story.
Definitely. And Walkies is a three-part team. It's Sean Grasso, it's Hunter Bartlett. That's the team behind the Walkies production. And yeah, we're serious about telling these stories. What I see happening now is a movement to try to go back to the old criminal justice policies, and that's why this election is really important, because what I've recognized while I was spending my time in prison is that when we see this violence, it really is a call for help from our communities. I saw a lot of lost people, hurt people, traumatized people on the inside. That's why they found themselves in there. That's why I found myself in there. And like Kurt talked about, I was fortunate enough to have the resources to work on myself. Everyone doesn't have that. And I was also fortunate to be sentenced by a judge who knew that I had potential. And it's important that when we vote in judges that recognize that, the majority of people who go to prison are getting out. And if we're not investing in those individuals, what do we think is going to happen when they get out? So that's why it's really important to make sure that, we're providing resources to our peoples. And that's why I created Walkies. I wanted people to recognize the humanity behind what's going on in our communities.
Yeah, that's a very important piece, that what you were just saying about why we need to pay more attention to these judicial races, because you want to pick the judges because, not everyone has that luxury, has that opportunity, has that moment like you had, where you had a judge that, okay, I see a young man here who's, who's dealing with some challenges, there's trouble, but I see the potential. He saw the potential, or that judge, he or she saw that potential for, eventually for you to create this Walkies film series, apparently. But not everyone, once again, we have this very problematic relationship with the courts. Not all the judges are seeing it that way. And that's why we need to pick the judges that do see it that way. So we're not dealing with those disastrous and catastrophic social costs in the near term and long term as well. Definitely.
Again, I just want to emphasize that, we see all this violence happening in the news. Every day I go to social media, I turn on my TV, a shooting happened yesterday around the corner from me. But the same people who are active in crime are texting me, messaging me, saying, bro, I need a way out. Do you have any opportunities for me? Can you help me start my own business? What can you put me on? And unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of things resources to provide for people, which is why what Kurt and what they're doing over at Down North is really important, giving people an opportunity and a resource to get out of, crime. Because the culture that we have for young Black men and just young men in general, growing up in the hood, pushes you towards the wrong. And it's so easy to get caught up in that. I'm someone who got caught up in that. And we need to see way more positive examples of what it is to do right in our communities, which is why I'm fortunate to be on this radio show. I love to see what Kurt and them are doing. We need more and more examples of that because the young guys are really crying out for it.
Yeah. Kurt, did you have something to add to it?
Now, it really sums up a lot of my feelings about how we need to get resources to people in our community, job resources, job training. City of Philadelphia is getting ready to be on a platform of a tech platform that's like going to be on the scale of Seattle pretty soon. And a lot of our people are going to be left behind because they don't have the job training and the resources to be able to attain these jobs. And it's going to be people from another city moving to our city, taking over these jobs. So I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. You know, Shuja, when I look at Walkies, when I look at your film series, I think that it gives me the impression that it's a project in empathy, right? You know, it's like you were just saying a few moments ago, like we really need to humanize these voices, these faces, and our brothers and sisters who are dealing with these challenges, and talk a little bit about that while we've got you for another minute or two, like why it's so important to understand and act on that plight of the incarcerated, the formerly incarcerated, to help people who aren't faced with or who've never been faced with incarceration understand that this is an important issue for them too. So just because you haven't been incarcerated doesn't like distance you from the problem. Like we all have to be paying very close attention to this and exercising that empathy.
Yeah, I mean, we're affected and we're paying for it. I mean, we're paying for it in police salaries, judges' salaries. We're paying for it in incarcerating people. You know, we're spending upwards to 200,000, 300,000 per year on this issue. And if we're not directing that money in a way that's actually healing our community, then we're just wasting money. We're throwing money down the toilet. You know, over 90% of people who find themselves to be incarcerated are getting out. They're coming home to my community, your community. And if we just want to see this cycle repeat itself, then yeah, we could turn a blind eye and not vote. But if we actually want to make a difference, then we got to be active. And if you can't actually get out in the street, if you can't provide resources, what you can do is vote.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to end it there. So that's a good point to end on too, Shuja. And we got to keep in touch. We got to have you back on to get an update on how the Walkies film is, how it's managing along. And, you know, if you're also sharing it and introducing it to other audiences as well. So I like to help with that. So it's a very fine production. You got a really good project here, and I'm a film buff. So so I love this. I love what you're doing. For more information, you go to walkiesfilms.com, not just for information, but to watch the series as well. You're on social media at walkiesfilms on Twitter, and you can, you know, learn more about them once again at walkiesfilms.com. We've been talking with the creator, the executive producer of that film series, Shuja Moore, and we've been enjoying co-hosting me. With me today is Kurt Evans, who is an organizer, lead organizer with the 215 People's Alliance. We're going to take a break. Once again, we're having a special broadcast on judicial races that is being brought to you by 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot. Everyone I'm reminding you that on May 18th, Philadelphians will vote, have the opportunity to vote for the judges they want, for the district attorney they want, and for the judges that they want. Make sure to get registered to vote by May 3rd. Of course, to get registered to vote. To learn more information about that, go to philadelphiavotes.com, of course, or votespa.com, because there's some state judicial races, state Supreme Court and Superior Court among them that you need to pay attention to as well. 215pa.com, also reclaimphiladelphia.org and freetheballot.org for more information on our sponsors for this special broadcast today. Shuja, thanks so much for joining us. Let's take a break. I still got Kurt Evans with me. And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
This is brought to you by 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot, who would like to remind you that on May 18th, Philadelphians will vote for the district attorney and judges. Make sure you are registered to vote by May 3rd.
COVID vaccines are here, and Black physicians and scientists helped to develop them. So I feel good about getting the vaccine. And with new forms of the virus now spreading, I know we need to keep up everything we're already doing. Masking up, keeping that 6-foot distance, and avoiding crowds. COVID's been doubly tough on us, so let's double down to take it down. We can do this. Learn more about getting the vaccine and slowing the spread at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, this is John.
Hi, this is Juanita, owners of JD's Auto Body and Painting. We're located at 6300 Wayne Avenue, right there at the intersection of Wayne and Washington Lane.
We really like to thank all you WURD listeners for the support that you've given our business, and we really hope to see you in the future.
JD, tell them about our products and services we have.
We have a new state-of-the-art paint shop along with our body shop and detail shop. We can help you with the dents and scratches from the winter season.
Come to JD's Auto Body and Painting. Come on out and check us out. We're still honoring that WURD 10% discount. Give us a call, 215-848-5949. Again, 215-848-5949.
Thanks again for supporting our business. We really appreciate you.
See you at JD's Auto Body and Painting.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for May is Living in Color by Tommy Davidson. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, May 11th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color.
Spring forward with premium nutrition meals. Enjoy a variety of new exciting entrees along with rewards and referrals program that pays you to eat and tell. As always, everything is chef crafted, freshly prepared, and delivered to your door. Just visit premiumnutritionmeals.com, where listeners get $10 off 6 meals or more. Enter code PREMIUMWORD at checkout.
With Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Kurt Evans is still with me as my guest co-host. He's my guest co-host for this morning Monday edition of Reality Check, having a very special conversation, a needed conversation on judicial races, justice elections are coming up. And we have to pay attention. So I know we just got out of a big, massive, I know I was working real hard on it last year, big, massive election cycle, but it does not end. That work is always constant and ongoing. It does not stop, especially with respect to the so-called justice system, the court system, especially in a place like Philadelphia. This special conversation broadcast being brought to you by the 215 People's Alliance Reclaim Philadelphia and Free the Ballot. And don't forget, you've got to get registered to vote for those May 18th races coming up on May the 3rd. Go to PhiladelphiaVotes.com for more on that. Now joining us is Kevin Harden. He is an attorney at Ross Feller Casey, Catastrophic Personal Injury and Civil Rights. He's a member also of the Pennsylvania Police Reform Working Group. Recently won a record-setting settlement for a client who was exonerated for being convicted of a crime he did not commit. Kevin joins us by Zoom. Kevin, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Charles?
All right, good. Thanks for joining us. I'm real curious, the work you're currently doing with the Pennsylvania Police Reform Working Group, what is that exactly, and how did you get involved? How do people learn more about it?
So it's an organization of probably 18 to 20 legislators and 4 or 5 attorneys who act as policy advisors. Following the death of George Floyd last year, we organized ourselves to put forth a slate of reforms that could be done at the state, municipal, and federal level. So we just made about 100 recommendations. It was the first time you really had a large group of people come together and say, this is what we're trying to do at every level. We got the mayor of Pittsburgh, the mayor of Philadelphia, and the governor, as well as the attorney general of Pennsylvania, to agree to a percentage of our demands, but we've got a lot more work to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm sure a lot of work to do there. As an attorney, you realize, right, because you're facing those different judges, those officers of the court on a regular routine basis. And so talk to people, talk to the audience about why we need to pay attention to these judicial races. I believe it was either Shakita or Shuja after her was making the point. Both of them were making the point that, like, in these interactions with judges, you want a judge who's going to see potential in you, who's going to work with you, like less votes. We can pick the kinds of judges we want when we get into those tough situations, those difficult circumstances in these courtrooms.
Yes. So for the most part, the first thing you want as a lawyer is you want a judge with an open mind. You want a judge that isn't going to look at an individual and decide that their life isn't worth as much as another individual's life. In the conversations we've been having about justice and policing and public safety, you have to think about the idea that, in ancient times when someone would steal, they cut the person's hands off.
Yeah.
And at some point that became inhumane. But in this current conversation of mass incarceration, this idea of incapacitating people is an inhumane thing. And we need individuals that understand that if you have a whole community of people that have no hands, then how are they going to feed themselves? Well, they're going to do things that are not normal. So as a lawyer, I represent individuals, for example, Mr. Lewis, who came home after doing 21 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Going into a room and trying to explain to a judge that this guy who grew up on 60th and Delancey, right around the corner from where I grew up on 58th and Baltimore, in the Cobbs Creek section of the city, he could have been me. So he's entitled to millions and millions of dollars of reparations for his unlawful arrest. And we can't just say, he was going to be just another statistic, so we should give him $10,000 a year.
Yeah, no, it's very important. I don't know if Kurt, I don't know if you want to jump in on that conversation. Yeah, question.
No, I think also when we talk about exonerations and we look at the district attorney's office and we looking at the conviction integrity unit and about Kev, you may have an understanding. It's about, to this day, it's about like 20 exonerations probably.
Yeah, I believe it's either 19 or 20 exonerations that have been done by Larry Krasner, District Attorney Larry Krasner's conviction integrity unit. You've got Patricia Cummings as well as Andrew Wellbrock over there staffing that. And it's undoing a lot of the things that we've seen that pretty much, in my experience, they say that every city has a flavor when it comes to what sort of exonerations you have. You have some places where people were just framed. You have some places where it was sloppy detective work. And in Philadelphia, we see that the judges were just very in cohesion with the district attorney's office. Like, it's like if the DA says it, we're doing it. So, and this kind of speaks to the idea that when you're thinking about truth and justice and how to repair our communities, it's really, you can't boil the ocean. We're not going to get rid of every judge that I disagree with or that the community disagrees with in one day. But for every judge that we advance, every member of the community that is advanced, that understands that the ideas like incapacitation being humane, that we have to be more creative about public safety, that even still with the gun violence increasing the way that it is during this pandemic, that we can protect civil rights while also valuing the lives of what is overwhelmingly Black and brown boys that look like me. I was shot 5 times before I went to law school. So, and I've been to jail. But for people if there was someone that believed in advancing justice, that looked at me and said, despite the fact that this young man has some scars, that does not mean that he will not be able to do great things. And it's been a remarkably emotional experience for me because, now I'm 10 years into practicing law. I've got a couple of records setting, cases under my belt, some life-changing cases. And I just think back, every time I do pull-ups in the morning in my bathroom, I'm like, I could be in a jail cell doing this right now.
Right. Kevin, too, because it's hard, particularly when we're in a time, we're not just in a time of pandemic, we're not just in a time of excessive mass incarceration and the systemic racism that results in that. But also people in Philadelphia are being traumatized by high violence, 500 people murdered, over 3,300 people shot in 2020 alone. We're about to outpace that this year in 2021. So it's very difficult, talk about that tricky balance in that conversation of, because you were just saying it, like, we can protect our civil rights while also valuing our public safety, the public safety we deserve in our communities. But it is tough because people, when we talk about exoneration, then there are some folks out there who get the impression that, oh, you're letting people, dangerous people, out scot-free out of these prison systems. They need to stay there. But no, like, this is a very frequent occurrence where people are being accused of crimes they did not commit, or minor crimes where they may have committed, but they're very minor, but then they find themselves a lifetime in jail for something very small. Like this is significant. This is what causes a lot of the distress that we're seeing in our community.
So I always tell people the Bill of Rights wasn't written, you know, the Bill of Rights being the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution. None of them say the government has rights. They all say that people have rights. And, if, you know, even shooters have constitutional rights. We don't erase those rights, but nevertheless, we have to understand that the system is the system of government that we have was created to protect the status quo. It was created to protect property. It was created to protect the individuals that have resources. And one of the things that system has always reinforced is the idea of this incapacitation. Slavery was incapacitation based on skin color of an entire group of people. And now we've seen, and we know that Michelle Alexander and other individuals have demonstrated how the continued incapacitation of African-American people in slavery was just transferred over into mass incarceration. If we had a system that was truly based on justice and creating opportunities, I'll go back to my no hands argument. Rather than judges saying, you know, instead we're more humane than a community that cuts the hands off of thieves. But I mean, if you put a thief in jail for 20 years, you might as well cut his hands off. But instead, judges don't say you're guilty of theft. I sentenced you to a livable wage job. We don't have that. And you think about why our system doesn't work that way. If somebody came in and said, hey, I stole, I'm breaking the law, I've got 500 arrests for retail theft, you could just make it up. If the judge simply said, I sentence you to a job making $50,000 a year with health care and child care and all of the things that we kind of disjointed. So you have to go over to this system to go get welfare, and then go over to this system to go get food, and then you got to go to North Philly to go get health care. But the judge can sit and put all of the resources that have been created and put into the mass incarceration system, but they can't give you a job. So that just goes to show you, you know, we don't think about justice in the creative ways. Like, why isn't economic development a part of the criminal justice system, except for when they're creating wage-paying jobs in counties up in the mountains where, you know, I always say that, you know, there are no corrections officers or driving Uber on the weekends because they get plenty of overtime. But there are plenty of teachers driving Uber on the weekend because they don't get overtime.
Yeah, some very important points. Kevin, got to bring you back. Kevin Harden is a attorney at Ross Feller Casey. He works in catastrophic personal injury and also civil rights. We've been talking about the importance of court systems, judges, judicial races. That's a very important last point you just made. Like, why shouldn't economic development be a part of that justice framework, that justice paradigm? We need to talk more about that, so we got to have you back on. This conversation this morning, Kurt, is giving me some ideas for some future conversations we need to have. So we got to bring 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot back to partner with us on this very important discussion. We have justice races, judicial races coming up on May 18th. Please get registered to vote if you are in Philadelphia, really throughout the entire state of Pennsylvania, because there are also state judicial races like Supreme Court, Superior Court that are also happening. Go to PhiladelphiaVotes.com for more information. Also, ratings for those different candidates in those judicial races are taking place. Philadelphia Bar Association, for example, has judges, has a judicial ranking system that's already set up. You can go to judges.philadelphiabar.org for more information. There, Kevin, I really wish the Philadelphia Barristers Association were doing the same thing.
We just don't have the capacity. Yeah, I've been a barrister's president, and I've sat on that judicial commission 3 times. There is a barrister in the room at all times for the
Philadelphia Bar. Okay.
For the Philadelphia Bar. Yeah, there's always a barrister in the room.
Yeah, let's talk more about that too, how we can see about getting some more capacity for that, because we really need to get the information out there to our community about these races so people can pay more close attention to them. Kevin, it's really a joy talking with you. Got to have you back. Let's take a break, Kurt, and we're going to head into the 11 o'clock hour for more conversation. Also, phone lines open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
This is brought to you by 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot, who would like to remind you that on May 18th, Philadelphians will vote for the district attorney and judges. Make sure you are registered to vote by May 3rd.
Between family dinners, bedtime stories, and study sessions, Pico knows that life never stops moving. So if you need help paying your energy bills, there are financial programs available, like the Customer Assistance Program, or CAP, that offers a monthly credit that can lower your gas and electricity payments. Learn how Pico can help keep your life moving with CAP. See if you qualify at pico.com/CAP.
Hello, this is Councilmember Isaiah Thomas. I'm calling with important information about COVID-19 vaccines. In the upcoming weeks, all Philadelphians over the age of 16 will be eligible for the vaccination. However, you must register with the city to get vaccinated. Register today at www.phila.gov and fill out the vaccine interest form or email covid@phila.gov. If you can't complete the online form, call 311 to get registered. Your information is confidential, so please get registered today. Thank you.
As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. The Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium offers COVID-19 vaccines and COVID-19 testing at these locations. First come, first served. Saturday, April 24th and Sunday, April 25th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Dell Music Center, 2400 Strawberry Mansion Drive. Monday, April 19th from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. at SEPTA Suburban Station, 16th and JFK Boulevard. Monday, April 19th, Tuesday, April 20th, and Thursday, April 22nd from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. at the Leah Chorus Center, 1776 North Broad Street. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. This is WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
Okay, we're waiting on our next guest, who's supposed to be joining us shortly, but I still have my guest co-host today, Kurt Evans with the 215 People's Alliance. We've got this special conversation going on, and quite a conversation it's been this Monday morning. A needed conversation, a needed refresher on these justice races, on this so-called justice system, this court system that has been very problematic for us from the start. And so this conversation today, this special broadcast is being brought to you by the 215 People's Alliance, 215pa.com, by the way, Reclaim Philadelphia, reclaimphiladelphia.org, and freetheballot.org. All of these partners are reminding you that on May 18th, Philadelphians will vote for the district attorney of Philadelphia and for judges on the state and local level. Make sure you are registered to vote by May 3rd. Go to philadelphiavotes.com, of course, for more information on those races and how to get registered to vote if you are not already registered to vote. A lot of you probably should already be registered to vote, especially after what was going on last year. We should be having like record numbers, record registration numbers after 2020, and Philadelphia clinched it. Philadelphia saved the world, right, Kurt? I mean, pretty much, Philadelphia literally saved the world last year in 2020. Obviously, there's a lot more work to do. We got a lot of work to do locally and on the state level with these judicial races. And just your thoughts, Kurt, while we're waiting on our next guest, on how this oh, by the way, too, the phone lines are open for folks who want to share their perspective, share their thoughts on this conversation. 215-634-8065. Now, if you also have questions for our next guest who's coming up shortly, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Real quick, Kurt, just your thoughts on how this conversation has been going and any key takeaways from it for you.
No, it's been real great. Everybody's a really good, close personal friend of mine that's been speaking, so I know their lives, their journeys, and just to see them, talking, I think is a new look for our community, because instead of the regular politician coming up speaking to you, or someone that's just, with a certain agenda, that it really isn't for the community, and everyone that's speaking today has really good insight in their profession, in their field, and what they're doing. So it's a really good conversation.
I agree with that assessment. They've added a dimension of illumination to this topic. Really, there's some things that just the way that I've been having this conversation, it's kind of altered the way I've been having this conversation in my head. Certain elements of it, and it's given me food for thought on how to approach this conversation in the future. So I really do appreciate 215 People's Alliance. I appreciate you, Kurt, the work you're doing, and you're putting, literally as a small business owner too, you're putting your money where your mouth is, and you're hiring the formerly incarcerated. You're creating those pathways. So you are, like, you're doing that economic development piece.
And Charles,
that could be a part of the justice system. Go ahead, Kurt.
The piggyback off something Kevin said last one. So we have judges like that. I remember when down north just became a concept, and a judge. I had an article in the Inquirer. A judge named Stephanie Sawyer invited me down to her courtroom, and she went on recess. The bell took me in the back, and I sat in her chambers, and she was like, pulled the article up and said, is this you? And I'm like, yes. So she was like, what if I were to work with you, and I can, instead of sentencing people to jail, I can say, are you able to work, or do you want to work in the food industry, hospitality? She could send them to me for a job.
Yeah.
And that right there was one of the coolest things I've ever thought about. And the fact that judges are out here trying to make these strides for people in our community, I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
So give her just due, because she was a sister. She called me down, and she was really about the mission of everything that we were doing at Down North Pizza.
Yeah, that's important, and that's why you vote for the judges you want and the judges that our community needs. I want to bring on our next guest, and then I also have a listener I want to bring in momentarily. But first, let's introduce Pastor Carl Day, who I've spoken with before, of an organization. He's the head of an organization called Culture Changing Christians. Go to culturechangingchristians.org for more information also on him. He's at pastorcarlday.com. A lot of people recognize him, does a lot of work in the community, particularly with young people. Pastor Day, how are you doing, sir? Good to see you.
I'm good. It's good to see you as well, man. Good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Culture Changing Christians. What's meant by that? What's the mission and goal of Culture Changing Christians?
Man, the mission is exactly right in the name, to be honest with you. We're Christians out here trying to change the culture based upon our biblical beliefs, and just getting out here loving people, and trying to, reverse the curses that lies within our culture, the things that, are pushing us to make destructive and chaotic decisions. So we're a church, but also do a ton of outreach. We run programming throughout the city, and do a lot of intervention work. So do a little bit of everything. We try to.
Yeah. We hear so much about young people being involved in and impacted by rising, just out of control violence that's gripping Philadelphia these days. And we have a pandemic on top of it. We already had the poverty and the food insecurity and everything else on top of that. And so I just want to get your thoughts on how much young people these days are being stretched. We don't talk about that often. They are being stretched beyond their limits. They were already being stretched beyond their limits, we thought, and then enter the pandemic.
Yep. Young people are certainly being stretched. And also, to your point, Charles, I think that not enough is being said of how dangerous it is that they have these devices to where so much information is hitting them from everywhere. Everywhere. They can be intelligent, but it also exposes them to so much more than even we were when we were their ages. Even now, with uprisings and potential, protest and riots and all kinds of stuff. some of those things were not there right in the faces that could stir up emotions, because young people are very impressionable. As we know, that their brains are still developing over time. So there's so much being placed in front of them, so much being put onto them, which is why it's easier for them to get into so much more at the ages that they are. Because I have, I mentor, teenage boys in the city, and we got about 40 of them right now, and their conversations are so advanced. Because I'm like, how did you, they found so much out because it's right in front of them. So it's like that information can be a good thing, but also a bad thing if you don't have people around you that can provide wise counsel, mentorship, and guidance. And a lot of them are just more so leaning onto their peers right now, and they're doing, whatever they feel at the time, and it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. But I have thought about that in the sense, like, when I look at the pandemic, how we've been managing through it as a society, as a community. Social media doesn't help. Like, it's not, like, it's one of the reasons why the pandemic has gotten worse. But what you just said, like, really offers some thoughts, some insights into that. Real quick, I want to bring on a listener who has a question, has some thoughts. Maurice out of North Philly, calling in for our special conversation here on Reality Check. Maurice, how are you doing, sir? Maurice, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me, Charles?
I can. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'd like to say a couple of things, Charles. You talked about earlier this morning about the prison pipeline. One of the things we have to strengthen is our education system at the primary and intermediate schools to get that foundation down. Because most of the people go to prison, they evaluate if you have a 3rd to 5th grade reading level. They believe that's how they determine who's coming to prison, based on your math scores and your reading level skills. So I think we need to improve dramatically there to get the kids, once they get to the senior school, they are prepared to do the work that needs to be done there. So we can't do that primary and intermediate work. Now we're making life difficult to even get a job, because we have to be able to read and write, and then we have to have a diploma or GED. Your conversation today, Charles, I won't talk about it today, but it ties into what you was talking about on Thursday, the freedom fighting that Jackie Robinson did. And we'll talk about it today. But it ties in. And I want to thank your guest, the brother that gave the jobs out through the court system, because he highlighted the food in the restaurant. And he highlighted that it's part of the hospitality business, because a lot of Black Americans don't know that is part of the hospitality business, and I'm glad he highlighted that. But I hope that your guest on can get with your man Mike Green, and we can discuss how to build an economic infrastructure. That way, when we do economic development, we have an infrastructure to hold the development and to hold the community money. So right now, we live in a condition where we have a neighborhood, we don't have no one gather for community participation. So our funds come into community, but it leads right out because it's a neighborhood. And the people in our neighborhood do not live in the neighborhood or have a valued interest in our neighborhood, only to take money out of our community. So that's what I'm hoping that we can learn from today, and that you can put in the future of your guest and Mike Green, the economic guy that you bring on once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Maurice. Really appreciate you, Pastor. Talk about like one piece of what Maurice just said, and I appreciate him calling and listening in too, that education piece, because literacy especially. Philadelphia school system has done an epic fail of a job. The majority of Philadelphia public school system students are not reading at grade level. And over a quarter of the adult population in the city is functionally illiterate. And so that becomes a problem in terms of like what we're dealing with now in terms of violence and also the relationship we have with the sports systems.
Yeah, I definitely think that, education plays a part in, some of the development of our youth. And I also serve on the board of a early childhood literacy nonprofit, Achieve Now, because of that, because I love books, I love to read, and I really believe it is essential. It is extremely important. And I mean, if anybody works with brothers who are in and out of prisons, man, a lot of them struggle with reading comprehension and spelling, So I definitely believe that education has to be invested in. But I also think that that's the dynamic of culture. It's important for us to understand culture. We have to have people who can penetrate, the dynamic of culture amongst young people and understand young people enough to make education valuable again. Because that's also part of the problem. I've stated this, to the mayor and others in some of our meetings and conferences and everything else. But, we can enhance and upgrade schools all day long. We can, clean the aesthetics up, make them look amazing, make them look like they're suburban schools. We can even, even better the curriculum. But what does that mean to some of the youth, who may be in their early teens or preteens who really don't value going to school right now? That's not that won't necessarily ensure that they'll go, that they'll actually sit there and try to take heed to what's going on. So we need an overall culture shock. We need everybody else to be on board to really want to go ahead and help increase the value of that. Just same way we talk about jobs and opportunities and whatnot. I'm sure, like, I talk to business owners, I talk to other people who create jobs, and they sit there and tell you it's hard to keep people at a job right now. People that want to work, you know what I'm saying? People who are reliable, like, it is difficult. So those are the type of things, which is why I always speak about intervention. Like, we need to intervene. We have to be out on the grounds. We have to go ahead and really meet people where they are, understanding their dynamic, working hard to change the conversations and change those narratives, to actually be able to put them into programs and build those relationships so that we can transition the way that they think and transform the way that they act or operate so that they can value those things that are essential to their livelihood, employment, education, all of that. But man, it definitely takes intervention work though. We can't expect them to just fall back into schools or want a job.
Go ahead, Kurt.
It was a missing piece what the caller talked about earlier. Also, when you understand the preschool to prison pipeline, besides the educational, the reading grade level, African-American children make up a certain percentage of the early childhood education, but they also make up a huge percentage of the early disciplinary actions. So you have African-American children that are being taught by teachers that don't look like them, that will be quick to say, oh, he acted out in a certain way, and then they're getting disciplinary early. So this also these numbers translate into our prison population, where Black African-American children make up a certain population of the early childhood education, but they also make up a huge population of the disciplinary actions that's going on. And then when you translate it into our adulthood, African-American men, we make up a certain percentage of the population, but we also are over 80% of the prisons. So that's what's actually into the preschool to prison pipeline. That's also built into it. Not just like, you can't get education if you're not in school, if you're suspended, if you're spending time away from school. So that was just to touch on that. But also to talk about what Carl does. I like the work that Carl does. A lot of the people that Carl hit the streets with. We need to talk about a divestment from institutions that police department. I want to say the police department since the 1940s all over the United States has probably been like the only department that has never had a budget decrease. It's like it's constantly increasing every year. When like the work Carl does is very important in prevention, where they're going to neighborhoods, other men that's been formerly incarcerated, to have influence over people in these communities, and you're actually putting your life on the line, going out in the communities without a gun, without a salary of a police officer. You're going out into the communities doing these things, and their word actually holds a lot more weight than someone who's like really trying to come in and exert their force on people. So I think that like with this budget stuff coming up, not just like, we also need to worry about the judicial, but then we have to look at our politicians really closely, and how they're investing in people like Carl, Shujad, Kevin, Shakita, like people like that. We need to look more into that too, as well as what's going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey, Pastor, too, I do want to get your thoughts on and thanks for those thoughts too, Kurt. You're absolutely right. Especially when we just had here a live broadcast last Thursday, where the mayor delivered his fiscal year 2022 budget to the city council, because we had that on City Council Live, which I anchor. And you got about over $5 billion in the city budget. And and one thing that the council members said after that budget address live on city council was, hey, you know what? This is not bold enough. This is not bold enough. It's got to get a little bit more visionary here. But Pastor, real quick, I did want to ask you about how young people can get involved in, or are they, knowing about or feeling or paying attention to these judicial races coming up, and how important it is for these court systems to help facilitate that kind of climate where we can foster more growth and productivity and a better pathway for our young people. Court systems could be real key in that, instead of more and more incarceration.
Absolutely. I don't feel, and I reach a lot of young people every day. I'm typically outside 4 or 5 days a week. But I don't feel like, young people are informed enough about the judicial race right now. And the one thing that I do know, and the reason why I know, is because we host these gatherings with guys from neighborhoods, various neighborhoods throughout the city, and we gather with them. And I'm talking to guys from the street, especially the people who are most important to, and when I say this, I'm saying this for a reason, the people that are most important in regards to who should be the educators of this judicial race. And I'm talking about the brothers who are impacted by it or who've been impacted by it. They should be the ones educating us, not us trying to educate them, So, I share with brothers in different communities all the time. These judges get 10-year runs to sit in those seats. And if you were the brother that was impacted by those rulings, those hearings, because typically, Charles, when you go to jail, you go to jail, you get a cellie, a cellmate, and they're going to ask you questions, yo, what you in for? Yo, who's your judge? And the next thing they go right into is explaining to you, oh, I heard about that judge. That judge, man, no, my man had that judge, and that judge, I'm telling you, that judge ain't too fair, man. You got to make sure, you get you a good lawyer for that judge. Because why? Our brothers who've been through the criminal justice system are the ones who actually have the knowledge and experience with these judges. Everybody else is just pushing D or the R, red or the blue, and have no clue. Majority of the people who's going to vote don't even plan on having to go into those courtrooms, which is very dangerous. So for me and my team, man, we've been going out educating our brothers. We're actually going to be producing videos that's going to host and feature some brothers that are on the blocks talking about, giving their opinions on some of these judges. And, the point of it for me isn't to really have any bias for any judge, because, I don't technically have any biases with any of these judges. But for me, I want to see the community be educated by the community. So the brothers who have been through it or have had family members that have experienced certain rulings and verdicts, certain things that we see, it's just going to be a very unbiased approach. So if you got a track record that ain't good, the community is going to speak out on it, and it's at least going to be heard on my platform. You know what I'm saying? So that's the work that we'll do, because again, it's time that we really gain real valuable, tangible intel, instead of just selecting people who come around, say their pleasantries, show up, to our communities, shake our hands, or patronize our businesses during these times. And then next thing you know, 2 years in, they're sending everybody to Mars.
I love that approach. You gotta update me on that. Because that's where things need to be headed, because you're absolutely right. It's genius, too. It's genius. That's valuable intelligence. You can't get that anywhere else. In fact, you'll be paying hundreds of dollars in retainers for lawyers to help you navigate that system. But, we have actual, human resource within our community that have been through that. So let's start leveraging that. Let's start maximizing that. Let's start using that to our advantage, instead of, constantly recirculating in and out of these systems. Through this just a nonstop lather, rinse, repeat, devastating cycle that our brothers and some of our sisters are going through too. And I didn't think about it that way. You're absolutely right about that. Pastor Carl Day has been joining us. Unfortunately, I got to wrap you, but Pastor, I'm going to have you back, I promise. Because I had you on before, but I need to bring you back on more often. And he's the creator, the director of Culture Changing Christians. Go to culturechangingchristians.org for more information on him at pastorcarlday.com, at Pastor Carl Day. He's been joining us here on Reality Check for our special conversation on judicial races coming up. Pastor, really appreciate the work, appreciate the conversation. We'll talk to you again.
All right. Thank you, brothers.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
and
Carl.
my guest co-host for the morning, I'm sorry to see him go, but I'm going to have to let him go too. Kurt Evans has been joining us, and Kurt Evans is a lead organizer with the 215 People's Alliance. You can go to 215pa.com for more information there. Kurt is the owner of Down North Pizza. That's at 2804 West Lehigh. So they opened back up about a few weeks ago, and he also employs the formerly incarcerated. He's a chef activist. He's been doing this for quite a while too, and appreciated his thoughts and his insights today and his questions too. Kurt, really enjoyed having you on. I'm going to have you back too.
Thanks, Charles. Appreciate
it.
it.
Thank you. All right. Be safe out there, and good luck to you. Thanks again. All right. And thank everyone. I want to thank everyone who's been listening in and tuning in. Also, Marisa, especially appreciate you with the great question and great thoughts when you called in earlier. Appreciate everyone joining us for this very special and what I thought was a fruitful and productive conversation here today on these upcoming judicial races and also these court systems that we need to learn more about, we need to pay attention to, and we need to change, and we need to change now. This very special conversation and broadcast has been brought to you by the 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot. And they all want to remind you that we have an obligation to vote on May 18th for the district attorney and the judges that we truly want, and really in a time like this that we truly need. That happens on May 18th. So you need to get registered to vote if you have not already registered to vote. Also get some of these young people to get registered to vote too. By May 3rd, you can go to philadelphiavotes.com for more information there. Also want to thank the Office of Councilmember at Large, Kendra Brooks. She was unable to join us this morning, but that's okay. We hope she's doing well. And we've been partnering with her office, in fact, and more information on her at phlcouncil.com/Kendra Brooks. She's been involved for a very long time on the 215 People's Alliance Steering Committee. And, she's been doing some heavy lift work there for quite some time, including drafting the People's Platform by the 215 People's Alliance. So once again, you can go to 215pa.com for more information, or ajustphiladelphia.org for that People's Platform that Councilmember Brooks took a hand in drafting as well. Thank you for joining us for this special broadcast. We're going to wrap that up, and we're going to transition into our normal Monday edition of Reality Check. That's coming up next. We headed into an EcoWord segment, in fact, very shortly. And then we'll carry out the rest of the Reality Check Monday. So I'm going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Hello, this is Councilmember Isaiah Thomas urging you to vote for Judge John Padova on May 18th to keep this distinguished judge on the Court of Common Pleas. In addition to myself, he is also supported by State Senator Tony Williams, as well as State Senator Vincent Hughes, Representatives Joanne McClinton and Jordan Harris, as well as former Governor Ed Rendell and many others. Judge Padova is highly recommended by the Bar Association and endorsed by the Black clergy, as well as a lot of our local unions. For fairness, equity, and compassion, vote Judge Padova for all Philadelphians.
This is Judge Padova, and I approve this message.
This is brought to you by 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, and Free the Ballot, who would like to remind you that on May 18th, Philadelphians will vote for the district attorney and judges. Make sure you are registered to vote by May 3rd.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now there are vaccines, and they are the first step that lets us get back to the things we miss most, like spreading the word without spreading concern, girls tripping instead of solo sipping, and talking smack with the side of mac and cheese. It's okay to have questions about COVID-19 vaccines. Now, get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to our Monday edition of Reality Check. And thank you once again for listening into that special broadcast and a healthy, needed broadcast on these court systems and these upcoming judicial races that are coming up throughout the state, throughout the city. We're going to continue to pay attention to that here on Reality Check, but want to once again thank our partners, 215 People's Alliance, Reclaim Philadelphia, Free the Ballot. Really, really appreciate them partnering up with us, sponsoring, making that conversation possible. I know a lot of people walked out of it learning a lot more and looking at it in the way that's needed and getting ready and gearing up to vote on May 18th. Joining us now, we're headed into an EcoWord system, is Adrienne Redd, longtime environmental activist, is also a member of the Jenkintown Advisory Committee, where she works on those issues, not just locally in Jenkintown, which is, I actually, after Philadelphia Public School System, I spent some time out in Jenkintown, going to a school out there, special school out there, so I'm very familiar with it, but has focused for a very long time on environmental issues throughout her city and throughout the region. Also happens to be an adjunct professor at Community College of Philadelphia in sociology, but she joins us here via Skype for an EcoWord segment here on Reality Check. Adrienne, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Doing fine. Good to see you. Thanks for having me, Charles.
Excellent. You know, you and I were recently having a discussion about, first off, we've got these billions of dollars that are coming into the city, into the region from pandemic relief, from federal pandemic relief, whether it's the American Rescue Plan. There's a lot of conversation. And I expect we'll get something close to a rather robust infrastructure bill that at some point will get passed through Congress that the president will sign on to. That means there will be more dollars coming to the region for infrastructure. And a big part of infrastructure is cleaning up the environment, also creating a clean energy sector, a viable one in the city. How do we go about ensuring that those dollars are used towards that end?
Well, there are a number of programs that are proposing more regional self-reliance and regional infrastructures. I've just been recently talking to an organizer from an effort called All Together Now, and I'll send you the link for that. And it's focused on regional economies. So one of the things that they'd like to see is more effective and thorough recycling. Another thing would be to focus on industrial hemp as a way of building jobs. But I'd like to take a step back from that, and I'd like to talk about the thing that you and I always end up coming back to, which is, what do we mean when we say environmental justice? And why do we care about environmental issues as an issue of racial equality and racial justice? That word got used narrowly in the 1980s by a professor at Texas Southern called Robert Bullard. And he noticed that transfer stations, landfills, incinerators were almost always sited in Black and brown and marginalized neighborhoods. So when we look around at the quality of life, you and I both recently participated in an event with Zulie Mayfield, and she said, I don't think of myself as an environmentalist. And I think it's because she knows that people who are pushed to the sides, marginalized, disempowered, exploited, and those are often Black and brown people, when they hear environmentalism, they think about taking a hike on a trail or protecting an endangered animal. And one of the things that she did say was, your environment is right where you are here right now.
That's right.
And it's often a person's neighborhood that has poorer air quality or more contamination, lead in the water, because of the siting of waste facilities and the use of Black and brown and marginalized neighborhoods as a dumping ground. So the very first word that I want to say when we think about how can we improve our community, how can we spend money in this area that improves the quality of people's life, is trash. Where does your trash go? Where does your trash come from? There's trash at your own household level, but then there's trash regionally. When you start to oppose these use of Black and brown and marginalized and exploited neighborhoods as a dumping ground. Well, what's the alternative?
Right.
And one of the alternatives might be to think about what efforts are going on here now. I was just talking to a friend about an operation called Rabbit Recycling. They're trying to collect plastics. Most of the plastics that they claim are being recycled in the Philadelphia region are actually being incinerated right now because of the loss of the Asian markets. Well, plastic, what if we only talked about plastic? It doesn't get recycled into your number one PET drinking bottle. When we recycle plastic, often it gets made into things like park benches. Okay, that's better than nothing. To have an operation that did true recycling into usable items would be a way of spending money in this region.
We can make an economy out of that, right? I mean, that's like when you could suddenly start kind of viewing plastic in different ways because, well, one, and you were talking to me about this recently, one, you know, we've been sort of duped by the plastic manufacturers and the oil companies into thinking that there actually is plastic recycling going on. Like when we put our plastics away in these recycling bins, oh, like they're actually getting recycled. That's one. But then a whole economy, that's like workforce development, particularly for a city and an area as economically distressed as Philadelphia's, where like suddenly plastic becomes like, it's almost like, you know, how we use wood or lumber to build different things. I mean, I've seen examples of plastic being used as like, you know, I think that there was an entrepreneur out in Kenya that we did reach out to.
I just saw that myself.
Yeah, she created a process where like she's making bricks out of plastic, bricks to build houses. She's like, yeah, I'm just, and she's like, basically she's perfected that method, that technique. We could be doing stuff like that in Philadelphia.
Right. So that's one way of looking at it. I mean, I would say that, and this is hundreds of hours of conversations for you and me, and I know that, but I just want to have people think about it in two different ways. First of all, what's your household level of plastic? Can you ever choose to buy something in glass, or can you ever choose to buy something at a farmer's market where it's not coming packaged in any kind of plastic at all? So what are your individual decisions? What kind of regional economic development is possible? And what's happening at the top? We often get duped into thinking that if we do our own little part, that makes a difference. But there's also legislation at the federal level called Break Free from Plastics, which aims in simple terms to compel plastics manufacturers to deal with the cost of disposing the product they're making. Every piece of plastic you and I have ever purchased still exists. And so ultimately, yes, we could make a regional economy, that's the regional level, but it's also important for us to understand that the industry itself needs to fundamentally change. So the one point that I want to make is there are individual choices that we can make. There are regional enterprises which could better employ people and would be more environmentally sound, but it's also really important to make the people at the top accountable. That's one thing. Another is, and we have this conversation all the time, you and I, why should people of color care about environmental issues with everything that entails, climate response, energy transition, where your trash goes, when murders in Philadelphia are at an all-time high, for example. Nearly 500 homicides last year, over 2,000 people shot. And the reason is that if people are connected through gardening and tree planting and environmental projects and quality of life, that quality of life has been demonstrated to reduce violence in communities. I mentioned this organization All Together Now. I'm going to mention another organization based in Philly called the Urban Tree Connection. It offers internships for young people of color in West Philadelphia and runs a network of garden and farm sites for communal growing and gathering. And those kinds of connections can be a violence prevention. Yes, we need gun legislation. Yes, we're fighting for our lives, and particularly Black and brown people in Philadelphia and in marginalized neighborhoods are fighting for their lives. But if you take a step back from fighting for your life against violence, one of the ways to prevent violence is connectedness in the community. And a lot of times that can happen through a tiny butterfly garden. Being more connected to where your food comes from.
You know what's important about that point too, Adrian, is that these are activities that we have immediate control over. Like, these are activities that we can immediately put, like, okay, like you were just making the point a moment ago, yes, need to eliminate guns or really dramatically stop the proliferation of guns. We need, you know, background check lists. We need all that policy making on the guns front. And, you know, we need all that policy making with respect to, you know, also, you know, eliminating extremism, you know, and figuring out ways to also, you know, how do we prosecute people who were involved in gun crimes? But that's all like long term. And that's the stuff too. It's politically charged and it's very difficult. But these kinds of activities and projects, you know, where we connect as a community to enhance the environment, our space, these are things we could do right now. Like, these are things, they don't cost a whole lot of money. It's absolutely like the type of stuff which, like you said, the science is there. It's proven to reduce violence. And it's like, you know, just by like cleaning up a whole neighborhood and greening it, those are things we have control over.
So you started with the question, and I know we have limited time, of how do we spend money in this community? There's a new movement called agri-hoods, and we have a new director of agriculture and urban farming in the city of Philadelphia, Ash Richards, and those movements of agri-hoods, particularly with stimulus money, are something where you could take an empty block and you could transform it into a fruit forest. And that would be something that the community was engaged in. And as you say, it's something we could do right now. It's spring, this is the time for planting, and that kind of project is being promoted. And I realize that you're thinking in the whole mid-Atlantic and regionally. I'm more focused on Philadelphia. Yeah. But agri-hoods, hemp production, true recycling, those are all ways that infrastructure money could be spent to improve the quality of people's lives. Think about it at the local level, think about it at the regional level, and then still be thinking about how is it that we solve some of those problems of quality of life and justice top down.
We've been talking with Adrienne Redd, longtime environmental activist in the region, advocate in the region, organizer. She is focuses on these issues with the Jenkintown Advisory Committee, and is adjunct professor of sociology, by the way, at Community College of Philadelphia. And you can catch, she did an op-ed recently too at ecoword.com. And we need to bring her back on more often. I promised her to do just that. So we're going to have this conversation once again, and many more here on Reality Check during EcoWord. Adrienne, really appreciate your time and appreciate these thoughts and insights. We need to think along these lines. So I'm looking forward to catching up with you next time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. Be safe. All right. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll just have the phone lines open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 before we head into the noon hour here on Reality Check Monday.
We are people of resilience, so let's protect our lives with vaccines we can trust. We can do this.
To learn more about COVID-19 vaccines, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
The Black Words Book Club.
WURD Radio's monthly conversation on books that explore the African-American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for May is Living in Color by Tommy Davidson. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, May 11th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Join WURD Radio CEO Sarah Lomax Reese on Wednesday, April 21st at 1 p.m. for a special virtual broadcast in celebration of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Month. Sarah will be leading a conversation with African American C-suite executives, exploring the challenges and opportunities of creating real diversity, equity, and inclusion in corporate America. Panelists include Delilah Wilson Scott, Chief Diversity Officer at Comcast and President of the Comcast Foundation, Michael Rashid, Commerce Director for the City of Philadelphia, and Ramona Risco Benson, Director of Corporate and Community Relations at PICO. Tune in Wednesday, April 21st at 1 p.m. for this important conversation. For more information, visit wordradio.com and click on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Month banner. Brought to you by Comcast, Bank of America, PICO, Thomas Jefferson University, and Jefferson Health.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to our Monday edition, very special Monday edition of Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me go to George out of Center City who's calling in for a Reality Check. George?
Charles, how you doing? Long time no hear or talk. You know?
Yes, sir. How you doing, sir?
Good. Two things I want to hit you on real quick, and just listening, you'll see exactly where I'm going. First one, though, your guests were right, but the part is, other than a couple hosts, who do you know have enough heart to call a judge out? I mean, the last person I know did stuff like that, they put judges on the spot, how they act in their courtroom mannerisms, or their temperament, or their ignoramuses, was Mary Mason. I don't know. One, I'd say maybe 1.5 hosts will have the nerve or the heart to say anything about a judge and their behavior in a courtroom. It ain't nothing they can do to you either. I used to do it every week. I used to come on and tell you about just go in a courtroom and see the behavior of, you have some judges, we call them DA judges. That's all they do is roll in. Take Frank Palumbo. His whole thing is the DA is always right no matter what. You don't like it, appeal it. But that's because judges don't get called out anymore. Now, you go down a dial, those crazy people down there call a judge out in a minute. You let one of them little white kids or whatever get called to the carpet or something, or the judge try to embarrass them in the courtroom, or they'll talk about them all day. But we don't have nobody black that's got enough heart to say, first of all, as I say, Charles, and you've seen it and you've been around long enough, whose food you eat is whose song you sing. They dare not say nothing about a judge, okay? Those guys was on the right track, but they just got to get to the people who got enough heart to do it. It takes people with certain type of integrity and heart to do those type of things, especially when it comes to a judge. Or I'll call a judge out in a minute, tell you where they live, where their courtroom at. You don't believe what I'm saying, go sit there and look at it for yourself. And lawyers will tell you, but lawyers are petrified of judges. They got you called that robe fear. That they put the fear of God in them. That's why you have to elect judges who understand you, your community, your needs, and your wants. Second thing is, Charles, did you hear about your favorite person, the person that you keep that purple umbrella up over, the commissioner? You know, you and others try to protect her as much as you can. Don't you know she demoted the only black chief inspector we have in this whole city?
You said who's trying to protect her. I'm not trying to protect her. I haven't even had the commissioner's hasn't even come on this show yet. I mean, we've asked her,
Charles, you forget,
and she needs to make it like a regular thing. But I'm like, I just don't want I just want the commissioner who wants their police commissioner to fail, particularly at a time like this when crisis is gripping the city. That's my main point.
It's about doing your job. Everybody want to sit there and protect her, and she can't do the job. She's not qualified for the job. And Kenny said it out of his mouth. He said he got rid of her to be an uproar from the black community because that's what they wanted and that's what he gave them. I mean, in a real sarcastic way. I mean she was here to come to fail. In other words, you had some Negroes in the room.
So I would think, right?
Like
so I would think, isn't it a fair question to ask? I mean, well, how do we make her like do her job better? How do we make the police department do its job better?
Fire
That's
her.
the big question.
Get rid of her. Bring somebody in here who will make them do their job. Okay? And until then, she got her protection squad, right? But if you look at her record since she's been here, she has demoted more black men and stopped them from getting promotions than any other police commissioner in the history of this city. Now, I understand that she got her white card, you know, and I'm the only one allowed to say things about her. These Negroes in this city better not open their mouth, and you better keep your mouth shut and say nothing.
I don't think it's about that, George. I really, honestly, I'm being honest with you here. I think what it is that people are frustrated that, you know, we are outpacing the record number of murders that, you know, we can't talk about other cities right now. Philly's like on the map.
No, and nobody wants to deal
and so
with
people don't want to hear all the insider politics and the games and the conversations and gossip between different city officials and people who are privy to the insiders game of Philadelphia politics.
Charles,
who should get fired? People just want people to get people like working together and figuring out ways to end the violence. They want to hear conversation about that. What's the plan to end violence? Like, for example, like I need the Philadelphia Police Department to stop running the Philadelphia Police Union, to stop running the Philadelphia Police Department. I need all police unions to stop running local police departments and just doing their job that taxpayers are paying for. But based on what I'm saying police unions are the ones calling the shots and running police departments. They are unions, George, and they need to be unions or get out of the way or stop being unions.
Well, Charles,
because I think they're a big part of the problem. If, you know, everybody wants to talk about abolish the police. No, you need to abolish these damn police unions. And people need to figure out some other type of public employee union apparatus for existing police officers. No, seriously, George. Because the way I'm seeing the politics work out, where nothing's getting done, it's a constant, and it's frustrating. It's a lather, rinse, repeat cycle.
Can I say something?
I'll let you say a lot, so you listen to me. It's a lather, rinse, repeat cycle, George. It's like it's nonstop. It's like, and the cops, it's like nobody. First of all, the activists, they don't learn anything, and then the cops, they don't learn anything, and everybody's just doing the same exact thing over and over again. Unarmed brothers getting shot. And then it's like, you know, and then I'm like, well, you know, didn't you guys like learn from the last episode we just went through? You know, didn't you learn from George Floyd? Now here we go with Dante Wright. And it's like, and then we go, here we go with Breonna Taylor. And it's like, who's calling the shots on how to, one, restore safety, optimal safety in our neighborhoods, and two, how to make sure that police are acting right when they're in these encounters and they're de-escalating things the way they need to when they're encountering brothers for minor traffic stops. And it's like no one's listening. It's frustrating. Go ahead now, George.
You're frustrated, and I understand that. But Charles, you're a big boy, and you've been around a long time. And what your wish list is and what reality is two different things. And we can say they playing games. We can say who should run what. But you got the public who goes along with the thing of what the games they play. You ever read that book called The Games People Play? If you haven't, you should. Philadelphia politics, it's a business. It's the way things is done. Either you work within the system or you work without the system. The point is, people keep electing the people that they elect, Charles, so we can have a wish list all we want, but you got the wrong people in the room negotiating for the right people. Good people have bad people that don't have their interests. Everybody want to sit there and make excuses. Oh, well, it don't work that way. You know how things work, Charles, even though sometimes you get frustrated and don't want to realize how they do. But you've been around a long time, Charles.
No, because I think that because part of the process too is reimagining things and imagining the types of things that you want or that you feel are right for your community. And so that's what I'm doing. I mean, that frustration is not from naivety, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I've been around the block in those types of circles for a very long time. But I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, you know, well, why not imagine how this should be? Why not completely overhaul or dump the status quo? Because, I mean, the way Philadelphia is doing business, people on one hand want to be like, well, you know, it is what it is, you know, how we do things in Philly. And then on the other hand, then they hate the way things are being done. They want to get rid of, it's like, make up y'all's minds. Make up your damn minds. Like, what do you want? Philadelphia is one of the most schizophrenic places on the planet. You can't make up your damn minds about what exactly do you want. I know what I want. I want a different kind of Philadelphia. I want a different kind of Gotham. I do. I straight up do. Because I hate the way, growing up in the city and seeing the way things work from a very young age, I'm like, this is wrong. And this is trifling. It's trifling, it's trashy, it's nasty, and it takes away people's lives before their time. And I'm done with it, George. I'm done with it. And it's got to be, so people got to do things differently. So from the, as far as policing in the city, got to be done differently. People are paying for that service. So you best believe I'm paying for that service. I'm a taxpayer. I'm paying for that service over a period of years. My household or my family paid for that service. Best believe I want optimal. I want a return on my investment. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want no games. I don't want no silly, games. Tricks for rabbits. Like, I don't want none of that. I just want to know, can you keep my neighborhood safe or not? Okay, and can you act right when you're patrolling through our neighborhood? So, because it's this like two-front war that we don't need to find ourselves in. And it's like, so that's why I'm like, Philadelphia has a prime opportunity here to do things differently. So, like, I want to hear about first, before we even get to the point where we're talking about firing a police commissioner, like, okay, well, how do we make that agency work? How do we get the mayor to care that there's even, already, you don't care because he's doing bi-weekly press conferences. Like, what kind of nonsense is that? You're doing a bi-weekly press conference and your city just suffered from like $1 billion worth of lost productivity last year since public officials in City Hall, they don't care about people's lives. So yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor, you cost your city because of your lack of visioning and response and planning around violence in the city. You lost your city on top of the pandemic $1 billion in lost productivity because of 500 people murdered and 3,300 plus people shot. That's $1 billion worth of lost productivity. So it's like, that's one. And then, yes, you oversaw the snuffing out of over 500 lives. 500 lives that we know of, and the ruination of 3,300 plus lives in the city of Philadelphia. They could have had productive lives, and they had to go in and get shot. So it's like I'm tired of it, and it's like, and I'm tired of hearing about what's going on. With the way it is what it is in Philadelphia. It's like, do something, and be creative about it. And people are introducing and presenting creative solutions, and also make investments, and stop making announcements about money you're getting. That doesn't make a damn bit of difference if that money's not going into people's pockets, or it's not going directly and straight to the places that people making announcements and press conferences and standing up at a podium in a suit. Yeah, we got X amount of millions of dollars, and then patting themselves in the back. We did it, y'all. We're doing something. But it's not enough because people are dying every day. And now it's a situation where 2021 is going to be worse than 2020. I'm sorry, George, but I am frustrated. I'm not trying to be, rude to you or anyone else, but I think everyone else should be frustrated on that level too. I'm sorry, I got to let you go, George. But I do appreciate where you're coming from, what you're saying. Don't forget to listen into a special panel intergenerational discussion featuring 13 Black sorority sisters, host Lonnie Love, White House leaders Dr. Marcel Nunez-Smith, and U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, and get up to date on COVID facts for our Black communities. We're calling all sisters to join the conversation on Making It Plain, what Black America needs to know about COVID-19, the variants, and the vaccines. Monday, April 19th at 7 Eastern. Please head to facebook.com/blackdoctor.org or youtube.com/blackdoctor.org. Okay, so don't forget about that. All right, please let me take a break and we'll come back and we'll be right back here on Reality Check.
WURD is supported by Temple University, which is Philadelphia's public university. At Temple, students are surrounded by change makers who offer meaningful contributions to our city, country, and the world. Our facility, staff, and students are thought leaders who propose solutions for racial disparities, break down barriers to opportunity, champion equal rights, and challenge oppressive ideas. We believe that empowered minds preserve, and every member of the Temple community deserves space to shine. Barbers on Broad. We know grooming is important. Let us show you why. Our barbers have over a decade of experience providing quality services in a professional manner. We specialize in all the classic styles and cuts while delivering the sharpest finishes. Located at 1220 North Broad Street, Suite 3, best in town, best on Broad, Barbers on Broad. Mention this ad to save 10% on your next service. This ad is brought to you by the North Broad Renaissance and Truist Foundation. Hey WURD family, have you heard of the new Go to Know campaign? If not, here is the deal. WURD Radio has partnered with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, Penn Medicine, LabCorp, and the Independence Blue Cross Foundation to present the Go to Know Fit Kit Screening Campaign. The Go to Know campaign is an at-home screening test for colon cancer. Yup, you heard me right. You can take your own stool sample and mail it back for testing. Did you know colon cancer, if caught early, is 100% preventable? African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. Plus, it is recommended you get screened if you are 45 years of age or older. So for the next 6 months, you can go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. It's that simple. Again, just go to wordradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and request your free at-home screening test. That's it. Go to Know today.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
Undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD. Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison.
Right now on WURD Radio
and WURDRadio.com.
Okay, welcome back to Reality Check Monday here on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, and WURD app as well. I'm Charles Ellison, host, executive producer, creator. Go to @EllisonReport on Twitter.com if you'd like to tag me there. As we are talking about, obviously, violence in Philadelphia, 149 homicides, at least based on the most recent crime stat from the Philadelphia Police Department. And so that's 28% above where it was the same time last year in terms of the number of people murdered so far in 2021. And we have close to 600 people who have been shot non-fatally, but that's still tragic and traumatizing to say the least in Philadelphia. So that's nearly 40% above where that was the same time last year. Here to talk about that and other issues is Congressman Dwight Evans. You can learn more about him at evans.house.gov. He represents the 3rd Congressional District of Pennsylvania. Also joining him by phone is the chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, 3rd Congressional District of Ohio. Go to Beatty, BEATTY.house.gov for more information on her as well. They're both joining us here on Reality Check. How are you both doing? Good to see you. Good to talk.
Good. How you doing?
Great. Congresswoman, how are you?
Hello?
All right. Hello. Hi there, Congresswoman. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now, yes.
Excellent. So I'm going to start with you, Chairwoman, on just real quick, the caucus's relationship thus far with the Biden administration. Obviously, it's far different from what it was with the previous administration. And so how's that going as of late?
Well, let me just say, first of all, thank you for all that you do in speaking truth to power to all of our communities. The Congressional Black Caucus is very proud of the relationship that we built with President Biden, and it didn't just start now. You know, we take full credit for making sure that we got Black Americans in our communities out to vote. And overwhelmingly, Black women, Black men, young first-time voters went to the polls and supported Biden because of his platform and all of the things that he's supporting. And recently, as you probably know, the Congressional Black Caucus, I took the executive committee to the White House where we talked about voting rights. We talked about police reform. We talked about many of the injustices that are before us. So we're really excited about that relationship.
Yeah. I also understand, Chairwoman, and I'll get to you in a couple moments, Congressman, but Chairwoman, I understand you're currently in Minneapolis, Minnesota right now. You're watching that Derek Chauvin trial. You're watching that unfold. Obviously, it's real tense right now in the Minneapolis metro area, also with the death of Dante Wright in Brooklyn Center. There's been some unrest, obviously, in suburban Minneapolis. There's quite a massive police and military presence. Your thoughts on what that scene is right now unfolding in Minneapolis, and you know, who you're coordinating with to make sure that there is no further unrest, depending on what that outcome is. We talk about the reactions of the residents in Minneapolis, but what if the outcome is that he is convicted? We worry about the reaction from white extremists too.
Well, I think we have to take it step by step. As you said, there are several of us out here, many of our civil rights leaders, many of our stalwarts in the Congressional Black Caucus. As you know, we're a united family. We've been working with George Floyd's family. We had the George Floyd Justice and Police Act that passed out of the House and on the floor. So we're here to ask for justice, just justice. We want it to come back. If I had my way, it would come back guilty on all charges. But I think we are standing with the family. They're taking the lead on what they're asking people to do, and you're right. Either way, we have to be prepared to stand up and to address the outcome. And that's why I'm here, so I can see firsthand, representing the Congressional Black Caucus, what happens in a few hours or tomorrow.
Hey, Chairwoman, and also Congressman, you both chime in on this. Chairwoman, I'll start with you real quick. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, really important, particularly in light of recent events, but very, very low chances right now that it's going to pass in the Senate. So how do you work with the president on maybe some executive actions to maybe come up with something in the immediate term as far as police reform or reimagining police is concerned?
Well, let's take it step by step. You know, there are some things that we're working on with some of our senators over there. And I think what we have heard from many of our police officers who certainly have said 9 minutes and 29 seconds was something that should not have happened. So as we dissecting the bill, there may be some negotiations and things we have to do to get a George Floyd Justice and Policing Act through the Senate. If not, you also mentioned there are avenues by executive order and other ways that we can look at the bill and figure out what in the bill we would like to see in different steps. But we're not giving up just yet to say that it won't get through.
Yeah. Congressman, your thoughts on that, too, as far as, like, you know, the work that you're doing to try to get it past the Senate, but also any work that's happening with black elected officials on the state. You know, you were a former state legislator. Actually, most Congressional Black Caucus members are former state legislators or local legislators. So what's the work like with black elected officials and on the state and local level to try to push through these types of reforms?
As the chair said, first I want to welcome her, a part of what I consider a very good show and a very important show, WURD. And I thank her very much for her leadership that she is providing. She's providing leadership, which is essential when you talk about the Congressional Black Caucus being the conscience of the caucus. And I thank our chair for showing that consistent kind of leadership and the importance of that leadership and being right there on the ground. So I share with you that we are together standing behind the George Floyd policing bill. Is something that we think is very essential within this country at this particular time. So we are collectively, each of us from the various states that we're from, carrying the message locally with the elected officials, particularly black elected officials, about the importance of the particular act that we need.
Hey, also, Chairwoman. Oh, go ahead, Chairwoman.
My good friend and my colleague, who is, I would never be in Philly, whether it is virtual or whether it is in person, without saying to all who's listening, thank you for sending us Dwight F.
We lost you, Congresswoman. We can't hear you for a second. Can you hear us?
Speaking truth to power and what we can do to help Black Americans with the vaccination as well as looking at our criminal justice system. I'm going to have to go through the courthouse system, and I may leave you, but This was such an honor to be on this radio station that has such a history in this community, and I would like to say we are very strong fighting for our 17 million Black Americans that we represent as CBC members and 80 Americans, because it is our power, our message. Thank you so much for allowing me to come. And I need to let you have me come back so I can spend more time with you.
Yeah, we're hoping we can have you come back, Congresswoman, and we're hoping we can have all the members of the caucus. We can repeat what we did last year, have them on every week at least on a rotational basis. So it's a pleasure to have you on. I'm going to let you go. Yeah, be safe out there while you're out there. So I'm looking forward to talking with you again. I'm sure we'll set that up behind the scenes. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty is also chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus. Go to beatty.house.gov for more information. Thanks again, Chairwoman. We'll talk to you again. I still got you, Congressman. And so, you know, we're focused on these issues of policing reform. Some people, you know, there's been heightened conversation around abolishing the police, you know, some folks are saying. But, you know, there's also this sense that there's no national recognition. I wonder how much the caucus is talking about the two-front war, because we got the war in which you still got unarmed black people, especially unarmed black men, being summarily executed by certain police. But then we've got high violence that's happening in metropolitan areas that many Congressional Black Caucus members represent. I mean, even Joyce Beatty's, or Congresswoman Beatty's district, Columbus, Ohio, they've been dealing with record numbers of homicides. How do we strike that balance? How do we have both conversations? Because Just because we want reform of police doesn't mean we don't want safe neighborhoods too.
It's important with your comment, and I think the chairwoman and her comments, and when you ask how we're working together, for example, here in Pennsylvania, Chairwoman Donna Bullock from the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus,
right?
We're working in unity with them. They have a number of bills, so we're working on that front, working the Congressional Black Caucus, working as a team. This is a prolonged struggle. We understand that it is, but like Choice Chairwoman right now is there on the ground. All of us throughout the state and here in Pennsylvania, I said to you, Chairwoman Donna Bullock is also leading an effort there. So I share with you, it's a collective effort to deal with this violence, police reform, those things we have to work with. We need all levels of government to be involved. We cannot take anyone for granted. We recognize, like for example, in terms of voting participation, the late John Lewis, in terms of H.R. 4, which is very essential, H.R. 1. That's very much a part of the equation. There are consequences in terms of voting. We got to pay attention to that. They also the aspect that we think in terms of vaccines and the importance, as some of the advantages that we had take place right here in this district in terms of being able to get an extension for the next 4 weeks on vaccines. Right here was a charge that I led. Thought that was very important with my colleagues from Pennsylvania and the senator. I joined together with them and we led that effort. We think that's important. Also, the American Rescue Act, the benefit and what it has meant to the city, putting dollars in people's pocket, also making sure businesses work. We understand the importance, putting money in housing, all of the kinds of issues that we face. So it is this collectivism, all of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus under the leadership of Chairwoman Beatty, we understand the importance of us working together. In this 117th session, under Chairwoman Beatty's leadership, we are showing in terms of a strong agenda. And as she just said, meeting with the President, President Biden and Vice President Harris, the executive committee met with President last week and Vice President Harris. But one thing I do want to say about Carl Anderson, son of the late Cody Anderson, who is a person on staff with the Congressional Black Caucus and all the work that he's doing. And I think that's important to recognize, that we recognize and thank him, for what he's doing and all the work he's providing with the chairwoman.
Yeah, we've been talking with Congressman Dwight Evans. He's been joining us here along with Congresswoman, his colleague in the Congressional Black Caucus, who's now chairwoman of the caucus, Congressman Joyce Beatty, who represents the 3rd Congressional District of Ohio, just like Congressman Dwight Evans is representing the 3rd Congressional District of Pennsylvania. Go to evans.house.gov for more information. I got to let you go, Congressman, too. I know you got a busy schedule ahead of you, but thanks so much for joining us and appreciate the insights as always. I'm going to talk to you next time.
Yes,
very
definitely.
soon.
I want to thank you, especially joining with the chairwoman, having this kind of occasion. I thank WRD for always exposing your airways and the regular program that I do with y'all every week on Report to the People. I very much, again, to Carl Anderson and what he is providing. Thank you very much.
All right. No, thanks so much, Congressman Evans. We'll let you go, and hopefully we'll have you back. Hopefully have Congresswoman or Chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Joyce Beatty, back as well. So, maybe we'll do that when she gets resettled into back on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. We can get a little bit more time with her. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we got Dr. Chris Colbert supposed to be joining us next to talk about things pandemic. And as we have him on regularly. So phone lines are open in case you have questions, particularly about vaccines, variants, and all those sorts of things happening through pandemic, how we still manage the pandemic. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You probably heard it before, but one of the best ways to stay safe from COVID is by avoiding crowds. That's better. Also, when you're out in public, make sure you stay 6 feet away from strangers or people you don't live with. It's okay to say, "Can I have some space, please?"
Well, it's going to be a beautiful sunny day today, and we can expect much.
If you're gonna have a get-together with friends and family, have it outside. And remember to keep those 6 feet of social distance. And last but not least, wear a mask that covers your nose and mouth with no gaps. They slow the spread of COVID or new forms of the virus called variants. And make sure you get your vaccine when it's your turn. We're all out here trying our best, and it's making a difference. We just gotta keep it up. We can do this.
To learn more about slowing the spread, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Buying something from a dealer just sounds a bit, well, put it like this. My cousin Ray Ray got arrested for buying something from a dealer. So why would you want to buy your car from a dealer? Hi, everybody. This is Nick inviting you to buy your next car from Jerry over at Cardex. See, they're not dealers. They're like a car concierge service. They design a car around you. Almost any make. If it's not on the lot, they'll go out and get it for you. So use my car concierge, where I've already bought 4 cars. Cardex at 116 East Glenside Avenue in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Check them out online at cardexinc.com or call Cardex at 215-886-3230.
Join WURD Radio CEO Sarah Lomax Reese on Wednesday, April 21st at 1 p.m. for a special virtual broadcast in celebration of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Month. Sarah will be leading a conversation with African American C-suite executives, exploring the challenges and opportunities of creating real diversity, equity, and inclusion in corporate America. Panelists include Delilah Wilson Scott, Chief Diversity Officer at Comcast and President of the Comcast Foundation, Michael Rashid, Commerce Director for the City of Philadelphia, and Ramona Risco Benson, Director of Corporate and Community Relations at PICO. Tune in Wednesday, April 21st at 1 p.m. for this important conversation. For more information, visit wordradio.com and click on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Month banner. Brought to you by Comcast, Bank of America, PICO, Thomas Jefferson University, and Jefferson Health.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back. Joining us now is Dr. Chris Colbert, Assistant Program Director of Emergency Medicine at the University of Illinois in Chicago. He's joining us from Chicago, Illinois, talking about, he joins us regularly, have a regular rotation here on Mondays where we talk about how to manage this pandemic, which you do in a time like this, and especially to address folks' concerns about things like vaccines and also these variants that are out there. A lot of people are worried about that. Phone lines are open in case you have a question for the doctor. 215-634-8065, 8663-610900. Dr. Colbert, how are you doing, sir? Good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. Good morning, Charles.
All right,
How are you
excellent. All right. I know it's morning up there, so in Chicago, so it's still morning. You appreciate that. And let's talk about where we really are right now as far as the trends, because they fluctuate. One week we hear, or the public will hear, we've got this thing under control. It's still dicey, but it's under control. And then the next week, like we're hearing right now, hey, infection rates, hospitalizations back up on the rise. So where is this trend right now, especially like you're working also in another major metropolitan area, but you're talking to the doctors in other major metro markets, and what is everyone dealing with?
Well, and the thing is, when it comes to emergency medicine, when it comes to, in fact, medicine, everyone's seeing an uptick. It's a mix of emotion because you have a large population that are either seeking to receive vaccines, they are trying to get greater access to these vaccines and really adhering to recommendations. And on the opposite side, you have what I call pandemic fatigue, where people just don't care, or they're just tired of caring. And that's what attributes to this increase in positive numbers, and definitely what increase to the increase in admissions to hospitals. Michigan is having a really, really tough go right now. And we're seeing admissions just across the country, not as we were in fall of 2020, but we were at a point where the numbers were really going down. We were very comfortable with that direction, and now we're headed back up.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's got to be tough and difficult for you all as well. Hey, I did want to ask you about something. I don't know if you have any insights on it whatsoever, but I'm just curious about as far as vaccine dissemination. I'm reading more and more stories. I'm talking to more and more people in the medical community about the plagiarizing of, you know, the making of or the use of vaccine cards. They're not very secure, and so there's a lot of fraudulent use of vaccine cards. Is that something that you've all been worried about? You know, one, there were concerns already about this not going digital, you know, like, you know, keeping track of who's vaccinated, who's not digitally, that we're using these cards. And so it's like it's becoming rife with fraud where people are filling out cards and they haven't been vaccinated yet. How worried are you about that, or how secure is like a hospital like yours in making sure that people aren't taking surplus cards to use them in surreptitious ways?
Well, in any capacity, when you're discussing verification in any form, whether it's driver's license or evidence that you have received the vaccination with evidence of the documented card, that's always been a concern. Directly as I see it from the lens of emergency medicine, we do not ask for any evidence of a card in that capacity unless there's some sort of conversation with your employer. So I can't really give true account and how that applies because the big question is, who's asking for these cards to be in a place where the topic of fraudulent cards are a point of conversation. From where I stand, I never ask anyone for a card. And I've never had anyone approach me to access a card that was fraudulent as well. So there's but so much information I can provide. I've heard of it. That is a point of discussion, but in that aspect, I'm in the same place you are. That's just something I've heard, a little rumbling in the background, and as more information comes in, I can have more insight to that.
Yeah, it adds one more like frustrating element, you know, to everything that we're already going through. Phone lines are open too, by the way, in case you have questions about pandemic. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900, joined by the doctor. He's become like a regular here on Reality Check, helping navigate, one of the many experts we bring on to help navigate us through these very difficult pandemic times. He's Assistant Program Director of Emergency Medicine at the University of Illinois in Chicago. So then he joins us here at Dr. Chris ER, by the way, on social media, on Twitter. And you know what, another thing too, going back to that conversation about how these trends, like they fluctuate, now it's back on the rise. And it's really hard too to sometimes give people updates or to talk about like kind of where we are, even if things do go on a downward trend as far as COVID is concerned, because when we're thinking about pandemic fatigue, people are easily lulled into a sense of complacency. When we say, oh, hey, you know what, things are starting to look up, y'all, we're still seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and then people get relaxed. And so, like, how do we manage that psychology, right? I don't know, doctor, if you have any advice on that, because then people sort of do away with a lot of those general public health precautions in a situation like that.
You know, what's funny about that question is the fact that healthcare providers have that fatigue as well. We have the fatigue of the pandemic, but we have the fatigue of going back to square one. You know, you see a boost in these numbers in March of 2020, then you see the numbers go down, and you see that boost again in the fall, and then we're seeing this boost again. You and I, by definition, have had this conversation at least once before, where we said, hey, these numbers are coming up. This is something that we can honestly address, and that's the point of frustration. Is the reality is, in order for us to have a great August of 2021 or a great July of 2021, we have to start working and just be consistent in April, be consistent in March. Like, there's no coincidence that across hospitals in the United States, you've got to wear a mask just to walk in each hospital, and you don't ever hear of these increasing numbers of positive numbers for COVID for doctors who come in direct contact, diagnose individuals, and admit them to the hospital, and it's simply because of a mask. There are some individuals who work in the hospital setting who don't believe in the vaccine as well, which is a whole different conversation, but they're still wearing a mask.
Right.
They still wear a mask, and the numbers aren't on the rise within each hospital where it's a true resource of this virus, and it's simply because of wearing a mask. I can't stress it enough.
Yeah, wearing a mask and wearing I'm doing the double mask. I mean, we're all doing the double mask now. It's even better. Kind of figured out a way to perfect that as well. I know it's uncomfortable for some people, but yeah, just wearing the mask is just all it takes. Let me real quick. Let me take a question, a comment from Abdul Jabbar out of West Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Abdul Jabbar, good to hear from you. Thanks for calling.
Hey, how y'all doing? Good morning. Good afternoon. So I get a little concerned when I start hearing people talk about this vaccination card, and you know, in the context of as if it's being promoted. That's number one. Number two, I'm very concerned at the fact that I have not heard anyone of these special, I guess you call them doctors or people that are in the field speaking about the VAERS aspect of the CDC's website, where it distinctly has information suggesting that there were more than 6 people that had blood clots from this Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Also, it mentioned over 2,600 deaths. So my thing is for your guests, and lastly, would you tell me if an individual that contracted COVID and was able to be able to fight it off through a homeopathic.
Mm-hmm. You still there, Abdul Jabbar?
Or any other ailment?
Oh.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. We'll repeat that question, that last part of the question, that if individuals treating it through homeopathic means.
Right, so if somebody is fighting it through a homeopathic means, why do we need the vaccine?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Abdul Jabbar. I appreciate you. Yeah, no, I appreciate the questions, but go ahead, Doctor.
Okay, West Philly, I appreciate the question. I take all questions, and again, as an emergency room physician, these are the questions I get every shift. I get these questions every shift, and I appreciate the fact that you're at a safe place and a space where you can ask that question, very familiar questions, and other people share that same question. So let's go with the question reference to the immune response. We'll take that one last because that's a very common question. Just the first question you asked was, what about the numbers for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, that there may be more than just 6? The reality is, absolutely, there is no practice in medicine where it's 100%, period. Less than 1% of the American population is allergic to penicillin and has an allergic reaction, anaphylactic reaction to penicillin. The same thing, those numbers are consistent with cholesterol medications called statins, in which there is a significant response of muscle breakdown, and with birth control pills as well. So with all of medications, every single medication, there is a risk of a side effect for everyone. And to not acknowledge that would be extremely dishonest and not transparent. So kudos for you for asking that question. And the big thing about this as well is that you have to look at the long-term positive effects for the population and acknowledge and share that conversation of the reality of things that could possibly happen. I do believe that the fact that there are 7 million individuals who received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and at this point we have 6 individuals, if not even, let's just say hypothetically, it could be a little bit more than 6 individuals. When you look at those numbers, that's significantly rare, but we did not dismiss that. The FDA, the CDC, and the medical community did not dismiss those numbers and pressed pause and communicated this to the public. I think that does 2 things. Number one, it provides an option of transparency. Hey, this is what we've identified. This is a concern. And coupled with that, I think that does confirm that the safety of the public and the conversation of this vaccine is at the forefront of the conversation from the medical community. The fact that we're saying, hey, we need to address this, we need to have a conversation, we need to look at this data, we need to alert the medical staff to be aware of this possible concern for those individuals who've received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Moving forward, this is how medicine evolves and works for all medications, not just for this vaccine. And it's extremely important that we have this conversation so that we all are familiar with and can navigate how medications evolve.
To Abdul-Jabbar's other question is an important question, like why, you still have people out there who are like, why should we take the vaccine?
Okay. Because this vaccine shows a positive effect. It shows a positive effect. It's just that simple. Not everyone can take penicillin for a specific concern, and we look for different options of antibiotics for those individuals. However, for those individuals as well, you can't surmount a response, or it's extremely difficult to surmount a really great immune response to a virus if you don't have this vaccine. If that was the case, we would not have this conversation with the vaccine in the first place. The vaccine works. It surmounts an immune response, and it mitigates the effects for specifically those individuals, and specifically for those individuals, specifically Black and brown communities that have such a poor response, and the numbers are really horrible for Black and brown populations. This is an answer that we can hang our hat on. Now, will there be challenges? There will always be challenges with medicine, and we will address them and provide that insight to the public as we continue to move forward.
And a vaccine significantly reduces your chance of ending up in a deathly ill situation. Like, I mean, the whole purpose here is to keep the COVID infection from becoming deadly. That's what the vaccine is doing. It's keeping it from you even having to go to the hospital and having someone like Dr. Colbert treat you and have you stuck up on a ventilator. I mean, so either you want that, either you want to be stuck up on the ventilator, you want to be near death because of a COVID infection that you got because you didn't have vaccine, or you want the chance to be like, okay, well, because it's not totally eliminating the infection, but it's just so you can manage the infection at home if you do get it, and so the vaccine essentially helps you from getting deathly ill, which is what's been happening with so many people who've been getting infected with COVID-19.
Which speaks to his very last question of what's the value of me receiving the vaccine if I believe I have an immune response that is good enough for me? Yeah. Well, that's great for you, but you come in contact with your family members, with people at your job, and other people around you are affected by this. Like, there's a reason why this thing spreads, and it's not just because it affected one individual. It's affected one individual who goes out and spreads it to someone else.
Hold on one second, Dr. Colbert. I just want to get another quick question in here from Ann out of North Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Ann?
Yes. For someone that's already had the COVID-19, and then they quarantine for the 14 days or whatever, and they check negative. I mean, would it do them any good to get the shot? And the next one is a short one also. They say from 16 years up, it's open to all. But my thing is, it's open to all. Why not just let the people come on in and get the shots? And because the forms are so short, fill it out, fill the forms out there. Because sadly, we was told that it was 500 vials of medicine that was left over. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead, Doctor.
Okay, North Philly, asking some good questions from North Philly. I appreciate that as well. So here's the thing. Pfizer specifically is authorized for 16 years and older. Mm-hmm. Moderna is not. That's 18 years and older. And Johnson & Johnson right now, that does not have the green light for anyone in that population. So I want to be very specific because if we don't define that, then we have people say, well, I went to Johnson & Johnson. It said under than 16 or Moderna. It's specific to specific Pfizer. That's number one. Number two, this is a directed vaccine for a directed immune response. So yes, are there individuals who have had the COVID virus and live to tell about it and have a great immune system? Yes, there are. By definition, there are. But we're looking at the community and the population as a whole and not as individuals. And how can we mitigate this large-scale response? And I also want to preface this as well. This isn't just a United States thing. It's not a New York thing. It's not a Chicago thing. It's a pandemic. By definition, what identifies this as a pandemic is that your pathology crosses countries. Yeah. So Right now, Italy is on lockdown. UK is just on lockdown. Canada is having a challenge as well. So we have to, if you really want to look at this, look outside the United States. Look what the other countries are doing. Look how they're reaching these challenges as well. So it's not a them and us in reference to the government or the system trying to have an effect on individuals in Chicago, individuals in LA, individuals in Philly. This is affecting the globe.
Yeah.
And in order for us to address this collectively, we have to be on board. We have to buy in. And the challenge is we buy in for a small amount of time, then we take our money off the table and say, I'm walking. We just need to buy in collectively so we can get, again, to get a great August, to get a great September, we have to start to be consistent in April.
Yeah. We're talking with Dr. Chris Colbert, who joins us here regularly, bi-weekly on Reality Check. He's Assistant Program Director of Emergency Medicine at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Join us from Chicago, in fact, and here on Reality Check. Good to see you, Dr. Colbert. Please stay safe while you're at it, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks again.
It's always great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Appreciate you,
Everybody
brother.
stay
Thanks so
safe.
much. All right, you do the same. All right, let's take a break, and we'll be right back. Phone lines are still open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet. Hold on. Whew. But you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew. Taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations. Because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
Spring forward to throwback. All this month, when you start or renew your WURD membership, you'll get exclusive WURD throwback swag, vintage backpacks, books, and tees. While supplies last. Offer ends April 30th. Sow seeds into Black Talk Media and grow with us. Visit wordradio.com/join now to start or renew today.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Phone lines are still open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 as we wrap up this Monday edition. It's a very busy, productive Monday edition of Reality Check. 215-634-8065. That's 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's go to the phone lines. We have Tyrone out of North Philly calling in for a Reality Check. Tyrone?
Peace and blessings, good brother. How are you today?
All right. How you doing, sir?
Hey, look, before I make my comment, let me just say, you know, it's always good to hear Brother George. Of course, he gives the inside politics of Philadelphia. But my brother, you would just as on point as his inside, because you speak about how we need to, what we need to do, not what's going on, what we need to do. And I just think it's important right now that folks understand how important it is on what we need to do. And I'm just calling one to, I don't know if folks heard the call to action by Brother Samari yesterday on his program. I'm hoping people are listening to, again, a plan of action that's going to take place from May the 19th, which is Malcolm X's birthday, to June 19th, Juneteenth Day. And I think, again, we need to be more action-oriented instead of, reaction. And I'm just want to say to, my brothers and sisters, particularly our young folks, how we react to this verdict is going to be very, very key in terms of what's going to happen in this country. So we got to really, really be about building, not tearing, not burning, not doing anything disruptive, because we just went through that and we see nothing came out of it. So we got to make sure that what we do is, positive and a means and a way to dealing with all the issues that we are impacted upon. And Charles, can I end with this, my brother?
Yeah, what's up?
I hate to put anybody on blast, but a lot of the folks who do the snatch and grab and the burn and the destruction are not, most of them, don't care about the issue, are not involved in any movement, and are doing nothing and care less about the plight and what's going on with our people. And for me, they create more of a hardship for us, for those who are trying to make a difference and make things better when they do it. So that's my take on the situation, and I appreciate you, my brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks so much, Brother Tyrone. Appreciate you calling in as well. Appreciate the insights. Let me go to Rick out of Germany, calling in for a reality check. Mr. Rick.
Good day, Charles.
Hey, good day.
I'm sorry I missed Dr. Colbert, but
okay.
I wanted to speak to something that he said. He spoke of the vaccine in his opening comments as if 3, 4, 5 different vaccines were all the same. And I think he should have been more clear that these 3, 4, or 5 different vaccines being served in America are a little different, each one.
It's just 3. Yeah, it's just 3. It's just it's Pfizer, Moderna. Well, right now it's just 2 while they have the pause button on Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Well, you know that there's the Cuban, there's the Chinese, there's a vaccine in India, and there's also a vaccine in Russia. And if you think Americans aren't testing that in their labs, you're out to lunch.
You think those vaccines are better, like Chinese, Indian, Russian?
I don't know which one is better. I know for myself, I have chosen to take the Pfizer. And even at great skepticism, I have chosen to take the Pfizer because of the seniors in my household.
Okay. No, that's cool. I mean, I was actually reading that there's a situation where the Chinese privately are expressing concerns about the efficacy of their own vaccine and are kind of quietly having conversations in the back door with American vaccine manufacturers about, potentially getting doses to them in their communities. Yeah, at the end of the day, I think that it's a fair point, Mr. Rick. I think that's what he meant to say. I don't think it's that controversial that he said he didn't say like multiple vaccines as opposed to the vaccine. When he said the vaccine, I suspect he was just talking about the overall process of vaccination that we all have to go through in order to extinguish the pandemic. We have to do that, and not taking the vaccine, I think he made a very good point where, okay, that might be fine for you as an individual to rely on certain homeopathic remedies, which I think we should do regardless. I think, we should do, I'm still, I've been vaccinated, and I mean, I'm still dosing up on my vitamin D, on my elderberry. I'm still doing what I need to do. I'm still eating. I mean, diet is a big piece of this. I'm still eating the way that I need to eat, exercising, maintaining my immunity as much as I possibly can. Even after being vaccinated, I mean, just because you get vaccinated doesn't mean you should stop, kind of making healthy choices or being as healthy as you can, whatever your circumstance may be, because it's going to be different for different sets of folks and for different households. And I know, income kind of factors into it as well. But, you can do that for you without taking the vaccine, but then that presents a risk to everyone else around you or who you come in contact with. So I think that was very wise advice from the doctor. Another thing, too, is that that vaccines, when you get vaccinated, these vaccines are designed to significantly. See, we've been taking flu shots for ages. Flu shots, for a lot of people, that's like an annual thing. I still don't, and people who come on here or go out in public and they spout this like vaccine hesitant or anti-vaccine rhetoric still cannot answer these questions. When you pose it to them, they get, the tongue gets tied up. One, we as kids and our own kids, down to our grandkids, have to get booster shots every year, had to get immunized every year. What's the difference? Can't answer that. Can't answer it. Like, I ask people that all the time who start getting into that vaccine hesitancy, anti-vax, I'm like, well, vaccinations for a variety of things have been going on for generations. We used to take booster shots. What's the difference? Can't answer that. So it's like, that's like one. Can't answer the fact. Also, now people are having problems with the vaccine card. We as kids, and our kids had to do the same thing. You had to, the doctor has to fill out. I mean, I had to take my now 16-year-old, and kids before her had to take it to the doctors before they could go to school, have to get the vaccine form filled out to send it to school so she can go to school. What's the difference between that and the damn coronavirus vaccine card? What's the difference when you go travel overseas? For those of you who know, when you go to certain places, you got to get vaccinated. Before you go to certain places, sometimes you got to get, for example, a malaria shot. Like before, years ago, when I had to go to my first trip overseas to West Africa, I had to get a malaria shot. I had to take was a malaria shot or malaria pills? Something I had to take, but I had to get something filled out. It was a form that had to get filled out in order to show proof of vaccination. What's the difference? Why y'all tripping out now? Like I don't understand it. And people cannot, when they can't answer that, like I immediately at that point, like I tune them out because I'm like, you have not thought this through. Like you're just making noise and you're being contrarian just because you want to be contrarian and you want to feel like the smartest person in the room, by labeling yourself or classifying yourself as vaccine hesitant. Don't forget to listen to a special panel intergenerational discussion featuring 13 Black sorority sisters, host Lonnie Love, White House leaders, Dr. Marcel Nunez-Smith, and U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, and get up to date on COVID facts. We really need that for our Black communities. We're calling all sisters to join the conversation on making it plain what Black America needs to know about COVID-19, the variant, and the vaccines. Monday, April 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Please head to facebook.com/blackdoctor.org or youtube.com/blackdoctor.org. I'm Charles Ellison. That is the end of our Monday edition of Reality Check, and a busy one. It has been. I want to thank Troy Wilmore at the Board of Steel as well. Everyone in Philadelphia and beyond, I want you to stay smart, stay sharp, but more importantly, please stay safe out there. I'll talk to you again. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow, Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. sharp. Stay tuned for The Source. That's coming up next.